Greetings and salutations, friends, and welcome. Tonight's a very special night because we have a very special guest here with us this evening. And I was just remarking to him off air that every time that I think I really know a lot about these strange and esoteric subjects, I come across someone like him who has an incredible knowledge base. After all, he has been investigating all manner of high strangeness for over 50 years. He has investigated all kinds of paranormal cases, hauntings, demonic infestations, UFOs, cryptid creatures. Tonight's guest, Dennis W Carroll, has over 4 decades of paranormal field experience. He has researched, studied, and investigated multiple aspects pertaining to the paranormal and supernatural, with many personal experiences that started around the age of 13. Dennis is also a researcher and investigator of the occult. He is a well-known authority on folklore, legends, superstitions, cryptozoology, and the occult. He's a paranormal consultant and supernaturalist who has advised people throughout the world on these topics. Dennis is a published freelance writer and author who has written several books and is currently working on a series of adventure novels based on supernatural events. Also, if that wasn't interesting a life enough, he's also an ordained minister and photographer and well known as a UFO and cryptid researcher. He's also a featured speaker and performs lectures and presentations on folklore, culture, myths, and legends. So let's bring him in here. Mr. Carroll, welcome. Thank you for being here. Yeah, so I have been binge watching a lot of your previous interviews. However, I always try to get someone's perspective from the very beginning. So what I wanted to begin tonight with is to ask you what really got you fired up and into all these strange rabbit holes. What got you started on this lifelong quest for knowledge of all things paranormal?
Well, back when I was a young child, I had several experiences. But the most basic one that really got me interested in my whole entire life, I've been interested in, I guess you would say, the supernatural aspects of life. I've always been a big fan of ghost stories and stuff like that. But when I was about 13 to 14 years old, I had an experience in church, in a church I was in. And it was very enlightening, shall I say, for me. The thing was that the piano player that was in that church started acting very bizarrely up front. And I was sitting there, I was way back in the back, but I could see all this going on. And they took this guy down and they got him down at the altar like there and started praying for him. and I didn't know exactly what was really going on. But the minister told everyone, lower your heads, close your eyes, and pray. Well, I didn't. As a kid, I was curious,
Yeah,
and
you
I
gotta
kept
watch.
watching. Yeah, I kept watching, and I saw three demonic spirits exit this man and go through the wall next to him there. And I saw this as clear as I see you. And it's sort of a jaw dropping moment. I mean, what the heck is that? What is that? And the only way I can describe them for you, Stephen, is they were sort of soccer sized balls of dirty light. That's the only way I can describe them. I found out later in the course of my studies over the years that actually what I was seeing was a manifestation of spiritual energy.
Okay.
But at that time, I didn't know what I was looking at, and that kind of lit a fire under me to understand what it was I was seeing and what I had experienced. And these avenues of study led me deeper and deeper into the many different aspects of the paranormal and supernatural realm over the years. The more it's sort of like, the more you pick it up, the more it sticks to you. The more
I've
interesting,
experienced that myself. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
the more interesting it becomes. And it becomes almost somewhat, for me, for a long time, like an obsession to learn as much as I could, to learn more and more. And this was, of course, back in the days before the internet and stuff like that. But I haunted the reference rooms of many libraries for many, many, many hours on hours going into these things. And unfortunately, they wouldn't let you bring reference books home with you. So I poured over many of this stuff and learned everything I could. And then that's when I began to go out into the field. A few years after that, my first actual investigation I had was when I was about like maybe 16 years old. And it was actually a werewolf sighting, you
Well,
know.
that's interesting. So you went
Uh,
to go investigate it?
yeah, well, I kind of finally figured out in the end this werewolf actually probably came out of a bottle. But it, it, it
That's
was
a
an
great
inter- it
saying.
was
The werewolf. Wait, the werewolf
yeah,
came out of a bottle. So
it
it's
was
just some
kind of
guys getting drunk and BSing, or
well, it was good. It was kind of a good way to begin anyway, learning how to actually investigate and all that. And I'll tell you this, and I have actually I'm retired law enforcement too, as a matter of fact. But
oh,
in the
thank you for
very
your service.
beginning,
Yeah.
I went to the law enforcement to learn from the people who know how to investigate. They have a certain concept. And to this day, when I approach a paranormal case or whatever the situation is, I look upon it as a crime scene almost. And I do like what Sherlock Holmes used to say. I want it to talk to me, to tell me this story of what has gone on here or what is going on in
Mm-hmm.
that case. And that led me to write several books about that, those kind of things, and how you actually investigate, how you need to approach these things with an investigative and scientific criteria to understand a lot of times what is actually going on.
Yeah, and
But
before I
I'll tell you
forget,
something, Stephen.
I just want to
The
mention because
thing, uh
you are like one of those people that don't have like that ego to go, hey, buy my books, so I'll do it for you. Uh, Mr. Carroll has several books on Amazon. You could just put his name, Dennis Carroll, Carroll, into the Amazon search bar. We've got one, Beyond the Shadows, A Field Guide to the Paranormal, The Road Unseen, A Paranormal Journey into High Strangeness, in Sunshine and Shadow. You have several of those in a collection, right?
Yeah.
Pretty interesting collection. Do you want to tell us a little bit about each book before we move on
Well,
to?
Beyond the Shadows is sort of a field guide. That's where I wrote this with my co-conspirator at the time, Brandon Hudgens. We got together and said, "Hey, we need to write a field guide. This would help people maybe understand how to approach the paranormal in its many different aspects." And that's where Beyond the Shadows comes from. And then the next book that I wrote, which is called The Road Unseen, it's sort of like part encyclopedia, to the supernatural and the paranormal things, but it also goes deeper into the second half of the book, goes deeper into the things that pertain to today, especially with demonology and aliens and stuff like that. So it's one of my favorite books. And then the other books are basically, I've always dabbled a little bit in poetry, paranormal and poetry. So those other two books are a collection of poetry that I have done. I call it paranormal poems of a paranormal persuasion, and so I've always dabbled around with that. That's the other writing part of me. I love words and I love wordplay, so that's one of the things I like.
Very
But that's what
interesting.
I'm going to tell you one thing about writing the books. You know, a lot of people go out there and they're going to make a lot of money on it, and that's not what this is about. To me,
No,
I
yeah,
feel that the more that you learn, and that's what these so great about these shows like this one right here, the transference of knowledge, the
sure.
spreading around of knowledge. We need to do that more often, definitely, as much as possible.
Werewolf. Everybody loves your werewolf in a bottle.
Oh yeah.
You're getting a lot of
You know,
comments from the live chat.
I'll tell you something, Stephen, that freaks people out when I tell them that, and I've done a lot of lectures on this, that when I tell them there actually really are real werewolves and vampires, but they're not the way Hollywood depicts them.
Really?
Okay.
I'm
Oh yeah.
aware of. By the way, I'm aware of the so-called real life vampires that become blood drinkers and sort of, dress up gothic and get fang implants. Is that what you're talking about, or do you mean actual
Well, there are different
vampires?
kinds. There are different kinds of vampires. There's human vampires. That's what you're talking about there. And then there are supernatural vampires or spirits. They're actually demons.
Energy
But
vampires, yeah.
there's a certain class of demons, actually, and that's where demonology comes in on that. So, and there are, but the human vampires, they have their societies and they drink blood and they goth stuff and all that. You know, that's one aspect of it. And then there is the vampire type that we call the demonic reanimation of the dead. You're getting into necromancy, which is some very deep, dark stuff. Believe me, necromancy is kind of part of vampire lore. So you have different types of vampires, and you have also psychic vampires. They can actually drain people psychically.
I think I've known a few of those people. Some friends and
Yeah.
family members that are no longer
Mm-hmm.
welcome around me, right? Yeah, they just suck the
Yeah.
life out of you, some people,
Mm-hmm.
right? But do you
Right.
think
But
that some people, on that note, do you think that some people are really, truly energy
they
vampires?
drain
That
you.
they
They
drain you,
drain you.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've had that many times occur during investigations. You put a full brand new battery pack in and walk in, and suddenly it's drained. These spiritual entities use this energy to manifest or do whatever it is they need to do, and that goes along with the demonic as well. The demonic is very into that. The more
Yeah,
energy they get,
I want to
the
try to
more
focus in on
powerful.
that. I want to try to focus
Okay.
in on all of your knowledge and experience with demonology. And part of it is selfish because I'm working on a project concerning demons and demonology and exorcism right now. And also, I have a friend who is convinced they want me to come there, and I'm not much of a field investigator, but they're experiencing poltergeist activity in their home and strange things and knocking and voices, disembodied voices and other things. And my first concern is that sometimes these manifestations or strange paranormal events that people perceive as ghosts could be ghosts or disembodied spirits, or I've even heard that spirits in purgatory can sometimes manifest on earth to sort of beg earthlings to pray for them so that they get out of purgatory. But you've investigated a lot of hauntings and some things that turned out to be demonic manifestations or demonic infestations. How do you determine that this is what the source of this paranormal activity in a haunting is?
Well, that's
Whether it's earthly
the
spirits, the disembodied spirits of the dead, whether it's
uh-huh.
or something much more dangerous to me, because being somewhat religious myself, I'm not prepared to deal with a demonic infestation in somebody's home. Normally, you would call a Catholic priest would be the expert on that, right? But how do we determine the difference when somebody's experiencing a haunting, for example, in their home or place of business? Or
Well, there are certain signs, like I've talked about in my book, Beyond the Shadows. There are certain signs that you go by. That what you're dealing with is what it is that you're facing. And here's the interesting thing, Stephen. Many times, and I'm going to say this. This is going to sound wild, okay? But you can't go by what Hollywood says. Everything you run into is not a human ghost. Okay, definitely not. And I'll say this: most of the time, true human ghosts are kind of rare. They're not as prevalent as Hollywood and ghost hunters would like for you to believe. What you basically are running into in the spiritual aspects is demonic most of the time. And these demons masquerade as human spirits to fool you into believing something that's not true, to trick you. And they are tricksters in themselves, in many aspects. They love that stuff. It's an ego trip to them. They're egomaniacs, demons are. They want to be little gods, I call them. That's what they are. But anyway, your main goal as an investigator is not to get in there and ask Uncle Joe or whoever it is you're talking to what the lottery is going to be next week. That's not what you're there for. You're there to poke these spirits and find out exactly what it is you're confronting here, what it is you're dealing with. And you got to go by those certain signs of paranormal activity and the other things that go with it, the aversion to religious objects, the voices, the shadows, and all this other stuff.
yeah,
You got to look
speaking
at
in
the
different
signs of what
languages,
this
right?
is.
Different
Yeah.
languages or dead languages. I've
And let me say this about the demonic, okay, and what makes them so downright dangerous. And I'm not trying to spook people. That's not my job. I'm
that's
trying to
perfectly
warn you,
okay. Yeah.
though. I try to warn you because what you're dealing with can be very dangerous if you don't understand what it is. But the demonic, you have to remember this, they're probably millions of years old. We do not know how old these spirits are. They could be incredibly old. And let me tell you this, they're smart. They're not
Some
stupid.
scriptural references.
Oh.
Some theologians believe that the angels who would later become some
Oh,
of which
yeah.
would
They're
become
the
fallen
fallen
angels
angels.
were the
Yeah,
first
fallen angels.
were the first creation, right at the first moment of time. They were God's first
Uh-huh.
creation, and then
They were
God
from.
created the heavens and the earth
Uh-huh.
after
Uh-huh.
them.
And
Yeah.
these things are incredibly old. And listen, they are very intelligent. And their first name was the Watchers. That was what their first title was. They were the supervisors of the universe. That was their job, to stand around and watch and make sure everything was going along the way God wanted it to go. They learned everything. They watched and learned. They know every language ever spoken. They know mathematics. They know physics. They know all this
Weapons.
stuff
Yeah, some say they taught
much
humans
more
that,
than we
right?
do.
Some say
They're,
they're
they're
responsible for teaching humans things like metallurgy, metalworking, and weapons of war, and
uh,
cosmetics and different things.
and they're
If
very
we
good
believe
at
the
giving
legends
us.
and the folklore, right? They
They're
taught
very
us a lot of things.
they're very good at giving us ideas for weapons and war because they want to always keep us divided against ourselves, and that's why they sow these seeds of hatred amongst races and religions and people. They want to keep that division going because a house divided cannot stand. That's how you conquer things and people. And that's what their main goal is. When you get deep into demonology, you find out what their plan is, what the main plan is all along from the very beginning of time since they fell and became what they are. They're going by a plan, and it's mind-boggling. And that's why it's another book I'm working on right now. It
Yeah,
is
isn't
something else.
there?
I call it the God game, and that's the game that they're playing. They want to be gods, and they don't care how to get that. Like I said, they're egomaniacs. They don't care how they get to that point, and no matter what it takes to do it, they will go that way. That's their plan, and their plan is our subjugation and eventual destruction.
To end humans, Bobby Broadway said they're very jealous of humans, right?
Yep. Well, they're very jealous of us, but we are considered to be sort of the epitome of God's creation, and God loves us more than anything else, and that's why they hate us so much, because they hate God so much. If I wanted to get back at you tonight, what would be the first thing? If I was your deadly enemy, Stephen, and really wanted to get you, the first thing I'd do would go after your family and your children.
Oh, people have
That
done
that,
that. People
that's
have done that
and,
that we have covered critically,
yeah. Well, that's
Yeah.
the way they go. That's the way they
I
roll.
don't know
That's
if
their
you're
plan.
aware, but the UFO community is a mess. And like, you can't say that this person's selling fake stories and even show proof and evidence that their stories are fake without people doxing you, threatening your family. All kinds of craziness is going on in that
Mm-hmm.
world right now, which is why I'm happy to, go look in on some others. But back to
Well,
the demonology, you have experienced yourself. You already recounted one story, but as an investigator, have you been places where there was demonic infestations or witnessed possessed
oh
people
yeah.
or people being oppressed? And can you talk a little bit about the differences between the common terms infestation, oppression, and possession?
Mm-hmm.
Because these things kind of go in stages, right? Somebody doesn't just
Yeah.
go from zero to possessed. And maybe
Well,
give us some warning signs or things to be cautious
okay.
of, you know.
Well, I'll tell you this. I have been in places where evil was so thick you could almost touch it. That's how it was, like a fog almost. It can be that way, and this infestation can turn people against each other. Where once there was a happy family, they're at each other's throats. There's those seeds of hatred I talked about earlier are sown here amongst these people for division, for the purposes of division. It's an old trick, and it works because they keep using it over and over and over again because it works. And that's why I tell people about certain things about this. I don't tell you something that doesn't work. I want something that works against that. And but here's the thing about it: we've got to look at these things for what they are. They're negative energies. They're negative entities. They are negative forces. And the thing that you combat them most with is the positive. It makes common sense when you think about it. The more positive things you have in your life, the more it keeps is, as more of a bumper it is against the negative. If you go into drug use, maybe alcohol abuse, or even medication abuse, or even get into certain lifestyles like obsession with pornography or gambling or whatever your situation is, whatever your weakness is, these things are waiting for that opportunity to move in and use that against you. But you have to invite them into your life, like the vampire we talked about earlier. And the reason why you have to invite it in is because it's basically demonic as well. You invite these things into your life, what do you expect is going to happen? And this happens a lot of times with investigators, paranormal investigators. They don't take the precautions of going when they go in and coming out of situations to safeguard themselves against these forces, and they take them home with them to their children and their wives, and they have this activity in their houses because of this. Many times, I've had many cases where they have these attachments that follow them home from certain centers because they did not safeguard themselves and take the precautions needed against these things, because these things are always looking for opportunity and that invitation. And if you live a life of nothing but parties and drug use and all that, what do you expect is going to happen? Eventually,
It's
bad things
definitely
are
that's
going
I
to.
can tell you that's definitely a doorway for the demonic. I've been there in
Mm-hmm,
some very dark places down those roads and alleys. Glad to be out of that now. But insofar as these things that you've investigated, a lot of people, we have a pretty critical and critical thinking and skeptical crowd, I would say here. And
mm-hmm,
many people are curious about what evidence that you have found for these things, or is this I can talk about one story where you know, I personally witnessed somebody speaking languages that they weren't familiar with, and this person was purportedly possessed. And to me, that was very convincing because they spoke in perfect diction of a language they did not know while under the influence, apparently or allegedly, of a demon. But what is
Mhm.
the some of the evidence that you have gathered or seen for hauntings or demonic infestations? Do you like videotape poltergeist activity, or uh, what kind of evidence do you gather when you go to investigate these things?
Well, most poltergeists are demonic, really, basically, in intent. There occasionally there will be sort of a humanistic quality to it, but most of the time it's demonic. And let me tell you something that's gonna flip your mind out here, okay? I have seen evidence that even deceased humans can be held in spiritual bondage even after death by demons.
Well, that's crazy.
Hmm. And if they've died possessed by these things, they definitely can be held back from where it is they're going because they're still under the power of these demonic forces. Um, you got to remember, possession starts out in many different stages. It slowly leads itself up to the basic full blown possession. But there are many other little steps leading up to it. And it begins mostly with an invitation. Like I said earlier, you invite these things in some or another, and you have to be careful what you bring into your house sometimes, or people that you bring into your life, because you can invite them in and they may have attachments. You have to really watch out for that as well. It's a very dangerous spiritual world out there. Okay, you have to be very careful what you're doing. But now the second thing is influence. Once these people or these things come into your life, they begin to influence you and begin to slowly change you and twist you and bend you to the way it wants you to go. That's just the earlier stages of all this. And around us in this world today, Stephen, we have an incredible amount of bad, negative, demonic, you might say, influence going on 24/7, pounding away at us and our children and every aspect of our lives. From corporations, from government, from media, from schools, from every walk of life that you can think of, every bit of this influence constantly. No wonder it would twist and bend us a little bit. And I ask people this, I've said this in a lot of lectures before. Are you starting to think thoughts you never thought before? Are you starting to think about things you never really dwelled upon before? Are you starting to feel differently inside? That could be the remnants of this influence on you. You have to really be careful about that because there's good influence and then there's bad influence. You know, there's an evil influence to a lot of this stuff, and you have to be very careful with that. But then comes a third sort of thing: is obsession. The oppression is when they begin to attack you spiritually, and it may start out very little. It may be small. Like I say, it may start out moralistically with you, and you begin to let your morals slide a little bit, and you start doing things that you didn't do before, or thinking thoughts that you never, bad thoughts that you never thought before, and having nightmares that you never had before, bad dreams and bad feelings and depression and all this. That's the way this oppression begins. That's the attack, and that's how they start. And then begins the spiritual intimidation. The spiritual intimidation is when they begin to start doing little signs against you, maybe paranormal activity, things that begin to spook you and scare you, make you nervous and anxious. That's when they begin to sort of intimidate you a little bit. And they try to push you down by saying, we've got more power in your life than you have, kind of a thing. So, and
Well,
that
thanks,
leads up to what I call UDDI. That stands for under direct demonic influence. They begin to take over more of your life very slowly. That's the first actual stage of possession. And you know, you've seen a lot of this in the headlines today, where people maybe go, God forbid, go in and shoot up a school or shoot up a restaurant or something, and then later on they said, I don't know why I done that. Why did I do something like that?
oh,
I
you
can't
think some of that
understand
could
why.
be people under demonic influence?
Yeah, and it's sort of like being under a drug, the influence of a drug. Well, like that werewolf I told you about earlier came out of a bottle. You get under the influence of these things, and your perspective changes completely on stuff, you know? And then that leads up to the sixth stage, which is possession. But it can start out very low level possession, work its way up to the seventh level, which is absolute full possession. In other words, you're in your car, but you're not driving anymore. You're in the back seat. Somebody else is behind the
I've
wheel.
heard that described by Catholic priests. A Catholic priest described it exactly that way to me. You're in the driver's seat, but suddenly you're in the passenger seat, and somebody else is driving the vehicle, and the vehicle
Right.
is your physical body, and that's also
Yep.
where the term meat puppet comes from, I suppose. Right?
And at this stage is the most dangerous because you will become overly 100% self-destructive. And you may look like self-destructive, but they are actually destroying you from the inside out. And they will get you to do it physically. You know, I've had a lot of people. I've had young people say, "Why do I want to cut myself sometimes?" You know. And I asked somebody. I asked a kid that one time, 15-year-old boy. I said, "Why? Why? That hurts. Why are you doing that?" He said, "Because I need to feel something. I can't feel anymore." So these things deaden you. They dehumanize you and turn you into something that is no longer human because they're not human. They're inhuman. Okay. And that's what they do when they possess you. They turn you from human to inhuman. And that's where you get serial killers at, my friend.
You think so? Well, we want to take a moment to thank Complete Zero for kind of generous 666 super chat, and thanks for being a member. Says we all know why. Well, you have you personally witnessed possessed individuals? You said that you're not an exorcist yourself, but you might have done some cases where that was required and you assisted, right?
Yeah. I have participated in several exorcisms, but not as an exorcist myself, but as a part of the team. It takes a
And what was
team. It's
that
not the
like?
way
Was that
Hollywood.
wasn't that terrifying though? Weren't you
No,
were
it
you
is.
were you
It
at
is.
all
Well,
afraid?
you better have a really strong grip on your faith when you go into these circumstances, because you're in a very dangerous situation again. Where I saw this happen with my own eyes, actually, they were casting a demon out of someone, and it went into somebody else in there because that person actually was weak of faith or something. Something had some problem going on, and they ended up being part of the exorcism.
Well, that's interesting. Yeah, and
Mm-hmm.
that seems to be, even in some fictional depictions of exorcisms, they leave one host and they go to another, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the exorcist it
Right.
goes into the priest, you
Well, I
know.
go back to the words of Jesus in the Bible, who was, I consider him to be the first exorcist. Okay, he said that they will leave this house. That's what he called the body. They'll leave that house and they'll walk in dry places. And he said, make sure that house is not empty when they come back, because they'll try to come back and they'll take that house and it will be worse than it was before. They'll come back with more demons next time. Let me tell you this: demons have a network. They're highly organized. They are more organized than any corporation, military, or anything on this planet. Okay. Let me tell you a quick story. I ran into a demon by name, and years later, he showed up again and he remembered me.
What was that like? I mean, the devil knows you.
That was freaky. That was freaky.
Can we
But,
talk for a moment about, you mentioned the demon's name. Um, we've
well,
heard so many times that the exorcists they command a demon to give me your name,
well,
and
the
a lot of
reason that
people.
is, let me
Yeah, I
say this
wondered if you
about
could expand on the name thing, and also, isn't there a misconception that when somebody's possessed, it's one demon? It's often multiple demons, right? Or a demon
Mhm,
lord and
mhm.
his underlings.
Well, you remember the old type of demonology, and I have to differentiate between this sometimes. Some people say you're a demonologist or you're into demonology. Boy, you're calling up demons. No, that's the old medieval demonology. The Lesser Key of Solomon and all the Grimoires and all that stuff. No, we don't do that. And demonology is the study of these actual things and not the implications of it. But um, the reason you want to know a demon's name is then you will have a certain amount of power over him. You remember the first thing Jesus asked the demon when the guy was possessed by demons, and he was out in the graveyard. And that's where they hang out. They love places of the dead, by the way, morgues, graveyards, hospitals, places like that. He walked up to this guy and he was throwing himself around. He was cutting himself, trying to kill himself. They were in that self-destructive mode. So that tells me he was fully possessed. Okay, and Jesus walked up to him and said, "What? Tell me your name, demon." And the demon answered, said, "Well, our name is Legion, for we are many." He still didn't give him an answer to the name. Okay, and I'll tell you why. They're not going to tell you their true name. They'll lie to you and give you something other than name, but they're not going to tell you their true name, because if you have their true name, then you will have power over them. Okay. Let me say something about names, Stephen. Names are a mystical connection to our very souls and spirits, and so it is also with the demonic. Your name is you, and you are your name by reputation and by spirit and by preordained God destiny. You have your name you have, or will die under that name, whatever that case may be. That is your name. That's what you're supposed to be. That's part of your thing. I've often said, I had a little joke about that. It's sort of like the mystical connection between a woman and her pocketbook. And because women don't carry pocketbooks that much anymore. But anyway, there's that mystical connection there, you know?
Mhm.
And that's
Yeah.
the way it goes with the demons, too. Their names are very important. So they're not usually going to give you their name.
Yeah, and
Not tell you
I've
the
heard it
truth.
said many times that all of these demons, including the ones that possess humans, are very legalistic, and so they
Uh-uh.
claim rights based on. So, in order to be possessed, you do you is it a hard and fast rule that you have to invite the demon in
Uh-huh.
to do
That's
so,
that's
and
one of
that's
the
what gives
rules,
them the right to be there?
and that is the why you have power over demons. The only way you have power over demons is through authority. Okay, the demons recognize authority. If you are the owner of a place, they recognize that. If you are married, they recognize that. That certain authority, that certain panache that you have, they recognize that, whatever the case may be. And if you have authority over a place, you can have authority over them through the auspices of the Creator, of course. But that's why you have power. They recognize that authority, and you have to exercise that authority, which is faithful confidence. It's confidence in your faith. That's what that authority is. Okay. And they recognize that. Matter of fact, that's the enemy against them. They don't like that because they want to usurp your authority. They want to take over and push you down. Like I said earlier, they're egomaniacs. They want to push you out of the way. They're narcissistic. You ran into a lot of people like that. I know they can think only about themselves, and that's it. Only what they want. Nothing else matters in the whole world. Well, that's the way demons are. Only 1,000 times worse.
And
But
yeah, I
let
was gonna. Oh, sure.
me say this. Let me say this, Stephen, and I've said this before. I'll make this statement. There are things out there walking around that are not human. They may look human, but they're not human. And then there are humans out there walking around that are no longer human.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure everybody's going to ask you what your evidence of that is as well for that kind of a
Uh-huh,
statement. That's
uh-huh.
pretty out there, bold statement. What do you mean by this?
Well, the first part of that statement are demons who can actually, they're shapeshifters. They're premier shapeshifters. They can look, I've seen them look like animals. They can even take on sometimes the form of inanimate objects. I've seen them look like people. They can look like people. But here's the thing about it. If you see these demonic entities trying to masquerade as humans, there's always something wrong with them. They can never get it perfect, okay, because they are imperfect creatures now. They have lost their holiness and perfection. They are now imperfect just like we are. By the way, we can't make anything perfect because we are imperfect beings, okay? And that's the way they are. So if you see one of these masquerading as a human, especially, or an animal, there's something wrong. There's something not right about it. It'll be maybe one eye's off or whatever the case. That's what you look for. And then the second part of that statement is there are humans out there walking around who have lost their humanity. They're no longer truly human beings. I call them lost souls. They have gone down the road of damnation to the point of no return. These are serial killers, like people, and murderers in law enforcement. And I've seen this happen. I seen a guy one time cut his girlfriend in little pieces, went home, took a shower, and then took a nap.
Wow, that's a little
That's not
morbid.
human. That's no longer being a human. They've
Well, isn't
become
it a bit of a cop out
dehumanized.
though? Because we see humans do destructive, terrible things all the time, like mass murder and war, and
Mhm.
does that mean that they're somehow demonically influenced and not entirely a human making these terrible decisions? Then is that what you're saying?
Not every time. You can't paint it with a broad brush. Let me say this. We as human beings are evil enough ourselves, okay? But when there's a darkness behind the shadows in our lives, that darkness is usually the demonic. And it's usually pushing its own agenda. And it uses us in that respect. It uses our evil. And guess what it does? It magnifies and enhances that human evil. I have looked into the eyes of human beings, Stephen, and saw looking back it was not human. It was inhuman looking back at me. It wasn't human anymore. That's what these forces eventually will take you to that stage, will take you to that point. Those are lost souls. They are the most dangerous people walking around on this planet because they will kill you without batting an eye. I would rather swim with sharks than associate with these people, okay? Because at least you know where a shark's coming from. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the shark is there to kill you, and you know it. Yeah, but you
Hmm.
mentioned having a repeat encounter with one particular demon. I mean, what does that do to your faith as a religious man, and how did this encounter with what you believe to be demons, how did that change you? What was that like to
Well,
confront an ancient evil like that?
I have seen their true form, what they really, really, truly look like. Not in their in trying to materialize. When they try to materialize, they can be very much like shadow beings. A lot of times that is what you've got going on with shadow people. They're demonics. They're demons. Sometimes, not every time. There are other factors involved in that as well, but I won't get into that tonight. But anyway, I've actually seen them in their true form, and I had to look away. I could not look at it because it would probably drove me insane. It was that horrible. As a writer, I cannot find the words that would ever describe it for you. Okay, and I
But
hope you never experience that.
aren't they by
I hope you
tradition
never
though?
experience that kind of a thing. Because it is not a good thing. It says, "Is it okay to drive in a Dodge Challenger SRT demo Olympic?" I think you'd be all right with that, zombie. Unless it's not a demonically possessed car, and then you might have a problem. But no, in that situation, when I saw what its true form was, and I asked it to show me, I said, "Show me yourself. Show me what you really look like," and it did. And I think it was its true form. It wasn't trying to spook me. It was so bad. I was really sorry I asked that. Put it that way.
Well,
If I had known what I was getting into, I never would have asked it that. But it could you to look into the face of such horror, of such ugliness, such I don't know what words you could put on it. It's not a good feeling. It will haunt you. The death.
one second, because we had a technical glitch. So just give me 1 second. Just stand by 1 second. Okay, now I got it. I'm sorry. We had some kind of a
Okay.
weird technical glitch just when you started talking about.
That always happens when you talk about demons, my friend.
Really? You think so?
I've
Maybe it's
always
just a.
expected to happen. Let me tell you a quick story. One time, I had a young lady call me. She was scared to death, and she called me. She was living in an apartment, and she had just brought a newborn baby home. She was living by herself. I don't know what her circumstances were, but she was alone, and she had this newborn baby. And she said, "I'm scared to death. There's something in this apartment, and I'm scared it's going to harm my baby." And while I was talking to her on the phone, this voice come over, and she, I could still hear her in the background talking. She didn't hear it. She did not hear that voice at all. This voice come over the line, and it said, very inhuman like, I couldn't imitate it for you. It said, "This is my place."
Oh, that's weird.
And I've had this happen before. I've had this kind of interference before. So I spoke to it and I said, "Look, that's not your place, and I'm coming there to prove it to you." And so when I actually went to her apartment and cleansed the apartment, everything came out all right. But I've had interference on telephones and electronics like that before. As a matter of fact, I remember Lorraine, Ed and Lorraine Warren. I remember Lorraine Warren had the same kind of thing happen with her. She's a very nice lady. I knew her. And
Oh, did you know them? I really liked. I think they overdid it with a little too much
well,
sensational Hollywoodism in the movies, but it was still enjoyable
I like
movies.
their research. I like their research, but they were kind of hung up on publicity. Okay, that's all.
Yeah,
Kind of,
yeah. That's
yeah.
why it worked, though. It worked out for
Mm-hmm.
them.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I apologize for the glitches, friends.
that's all
I don't
right.
know what happened there, so chalk that up. And some of the more skeptical people are again asking about what kind of evidence have you, do you collect evidence of these things, films, video, audio tapes? Do you have like a certain way
Well,
when you go
my
to investigate something, or are you just absorbing what's happening and retelling the story as your perception of it was?
my main goal when I go into those places is really basically to help people. They want a viable solution to their problems. And most of the time, when it is a demonic thing, and sometimes it's not, it cannot be. It can be other things. It can be residual hauntings. I've seen full-bodied apparitions. I've seen things appear like that. I've actually done soul rescues. I don't know if you're familiar with that term.
No,
Uh,
not at
soul
all.
soul rescue is when you think that there may be a spirit there, a human spirit that's held back maybe some unfinished business or some kind of connection, or even confused or whatever. You can actually guide them and lead them to where they need to go in the afterworld, there, the afterlife. That's called a soul rescue. In other words, you go in and try to direct them where they need to go. I've had many of those in instances like that. So it's not the demonic every time, but there are still people. They're scared. There's some stuff going on in my house, and I just don't. And when it comes to your house, that's your castle. Your home is your castle,
Oh, sure,
and
yeah.
you can understand why people are intimidated and scared by this stuff. So you want to give them a solution. I never held with the groups that were social. I call them social clubs. They go in, oh, we had a fun time, we got scared, we took pictures. Now, that's not helping anybody. That's not even in furthering of science or anything. They're
So,
just doing it for
would
the
you say your
thrill.
focus has been more on helping the people who are affected than in
Yeah.
collecting evidence to,
Well,
because
I would here.
people tend to be very skeptical, and also
You
people are
can't.
mentioning in the live chat that, and this is true, so we have to acknowledge that people who
You
used to
can't
have
get hung
Tourette's
up on the
syndrome or
evidence.
mental illness were once people who had Tourette's syndrome or mental illness were once thought to be possessed. But isn't it true that today, I'm aware, at least with the Catholic Church, they go through a very rigorous vetting process of these people before they make a determination that it's demonic and not a mental illness? They make them have a session with a psychiatrist who evaluates what they're experiencing to see if it is truly a
Well,
spiritual
here's the
warfare
problem.
situation or if it's a mental illness situation. But then I hear that these things are not
Here,
mutually exclusive, right? Somebody could be mentally ill and possessed, and that has got to be even more complicated, right?
some illnesses are precipitated by demonic experiences. spirits inhabiting people and all that. It can lead to certain illnesses, but they can also utilize illnesses and mental illness especially. They love that. They like to get behind it, hide behind it, and use it. They use people as tools. They use you, crumble you up, throw you away when they get done with you. Okay, that's just the way they work. But they can use these things. But we have a quandary going on in the world today. You have on one side you have the Catholic Church, and like you said, the Catholic Church is a bureaucracy. I hate to say that, but it is. That's what
I
it
was a
is.
member for a long
And
time. I almost became a
yeah,
priest, and I could tell you it
yeah.
absolutely is.
Yeah.
It is deeply
And it
infused with
takes them
politics.
forever. It, it,
Yeah.
it takes the wheels forever to turn, and people won't help right then, and you can understand that, they won't help immediately, but you got to understand the church's point of view too, and this goes also along with the other churches, denominations and stuff. You got to understand. You don't know. It takes a psychiatrist, a medical doctor, and a priest, and some other different experts to understand what is really going on with that situation. Is it just mental health? Is it drug use? Is it something else? It could be a mental illness caused by that. But like I said, the demonic is very clever at hiding behind those things. So you don't really know. You got to really study the situation. That's why I said it takes a team to do an exorcism. You got to really have a team to go in and try to figure out exactly what is going on here, and that takes time. I'm gonna tell you this: you can't, like I said, when we said about werewolves and vampires, Hollywood has really messed us up. Okay, Hollywood thinks you go in a couple of 3 or 4 hours and the exorcism's over and you leave. It don't work that way. It takes months, maybe sometimes years, to free people from some of these forces. And it takes a team, not just a couple of guys.
I can understand that. So
Uh-huh.
you besides demons, you've investigated a lot of cryptid creatures and also
Uh-huh.
UFOs. I don't know if you've been keeping up with the latest in UFO land and this Dave Grush.
Uh-huh. Well,
I call him an alleged.
I actually
I
had
call him
my
an
own
alleged
UFO
whistleblower.
experience. I've been fascinated by the UFO thing for many, many, many years.
Do you
And
think this stuff
but
is all related? Because you seem to investigate all of it, and some people believe that it's
uh,
all the same sort of phenomenon: demons and
uh,
ghosts and poltergeists and cryptids and UFOs are all somehow related or
some of them,
connected.
I believe there are some relation to many of them. Okay, and as I tell people about the paranormal pie, I want the whole pie, not just one slice. I don't just concentrate on one little slice. I go in for the whole thing. But I think some of it is very definitely interrelated, definitely. And like I said, I've studied UFOs for many years, poured over thousands of UFO sightings, interviewed people, and then I had my own experience with a UFO, which changed. You turn a corner, it changes your whole perspective when it happens to you. When you see these things, and when I had my own encounter and the weird aftermath of it, which I talk about in my book, The Road Unseen. I talk about that. I was living the Mothman prophecies for a while. You remember that movie, The Mothman Prophecies?
Oh yeah.
Um, I was kind of living that for a while. I still do from time to time. I put on my Facebook the other day a government vehicle outside my house. They've been watching me ever since this thing happened. I talk about that in my book as well. It's par for the course, unfortunately, when you investigate and you know some things that I know, which I can't really talk about. Some of it I really can't talk about. But you have to ask questions. You have to ask questions to learn things. And one of the questions was that just recently, a lot of demonologists have been contacted by the United States government about demonology. And you got to ask the question, why?
Yeah, I don't know if you're aware, but many people within the United States government think that the UFO phenomenon is demonic in nature and therefore should be left alone.
John Keel feels the same way about it. Matter of fact, I believe exactly what John Keel said. He said, I'm no longer as interested in the phenomenon as I am now interested in what is behind, what is the mask, what's wearing that mask that's behind the phenomenon. And that's me too. I'm interested what is really the instigator behind a lot of this stuff, and it comes down to one answer and one answer only. I have to say it: the demonic. It's got its tentacles in everything.
Really? So do you think that some UFOs are demonic in nature, and perhaps I've heard it described by a minister friend of mine that they are tricksters by nature, so they are just shape shifting or appearing to be technological beings to fool people for one reason or another. People think that alien abductions may be demonic in nature. And thank you,
I've
Zizix.
got that feeling. It has a smell of sulfur to it. A lot of it does. And I'm not going to, like I say, I'm not in for painting all this stuff with a broad brush. There may be some actual alien contact out there. I think this universe is a whole lot bigger than just us being alone in it. I don't believe that for one moment. And it could be we have been contacted, but I don't think it's on as much of a regular basis as people are being led to believe. I believe the demonic is, like I said, they're opportunists. They use everything for their opportunity, no matter what, how misrepresented it is, how misinformational wise it is. They use that for their own purposes. Let me give you a quick example. Okay, you remember Slender Man, don't you?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Okay, Slender Man was made up online. He's a character. He does not exist, right? But now he does exist because the demonic has taken that image and is using it. So Slender Man now exists.
Oh, that's
Does that blow
interesting.
your mind or what?
Well, yeah, I've heard stories of them appear as of demons appearing as different things. So I guess it would make
Uh-huh.
sense if that's true that they're watchers, that they be watching our culture and looking for you know
Uh-huh.
things to manifest as.
I don't doubt that they don't appear as cryptids from time to time. And I've done many, many years of cryptid research. And you have to wonder, was that the real cryptid or was that something else just looking like that, especially like Dogman or Bigfoot or the Chupacabra, which is downright demonic and vampire like. Uh, you have to wonder what's behind some of this imagery. And
Yeah, or
demons are all
shadow or
about
those
image.
black-eyed
Demons are all
children
about
as
it.
well. That's another one of those weird things.
Hmm.
Black-eyed
Hmm.
children, right?
Right. Hmm. The demons are about imagery, big time. That's what they're all about. They're shapeshifters. I'm gonna tell you what. When you run into any kind of a spiritual entity, whatever it may be, it is usually a shapeshifter. That's part of its spiritual makeup. They can change their appearance and images. Did you know I have known the demonic to take images from your subconscious and use it against you?
No, I did not know that.
Oh yeah. They know what scares you.
Yeah, and
They know
I've
your
heard it said.
fears.
I've heard it said by a Catholic exorcist that no, they can't read your mind, but they're so incredibly intelligent that they can guess at what
Sensitive.
scares
They're
you, right?
they're so they're not actually mind readers. I think your thoughts are your own, but they are so sensitive, so receptive. They can pick up on these things. What I call a sort of on the outer parts of your subconscious, and it's showing up in your body. They can read you. Like I said, they are super intelligent. Okay, they're like 3,000 times more intelligent than AI will ever be. Okay, but don't think they're not going to use AI because they've already probably infected AI. Okay.
Oh, that's a scary thought. Well, I would think that if they've been around for millions of years, amassing knowledge and wisdom, that sure they would be more intelligent than us because
Like I said,
they're immortal. They can watch
yeah.
and learn and absorb information. But isn't it true that they have a different sort of, I don't think the term psychology is correct, but they have a different sort of makeup in that when they were
Well, not
created,
only
they were
you got to
infused with all
remember,
knowledge at once. They didn't have to learn things like you and I have to.
a lot
Like,
of
for
it was
example, if
given
you and
to
I
them.
want to learn mathematics, we have to study mathematics for years. But demons
Uh-huh.
and angels at the point of their creation were infused with perfect knowledge of all things,
Here's what
godlike
here's the statement
knowledge of
here.
things, right?
Here's the statement is recorded in what God said when He made Lucifer. Okay, this is what He said about Lucifer. Okay, You are the most beautiful. You are the most intelligent. You are the most super thing I've ever made. But yet, iniquity, sin is found in you. You're corrupted. Listen to that statement a minute. You're the most beautiful, the most perfect, and the most intelligent thing that I've ever created. That's scary when you think about that a minute, folks. And you know why? He believed it. Now listen to this. Here's the thing about Lucifer. He said, I am so beautiful, I'm so intelligent, so perfect that I should be the one that is God.
Not God,
And that's
yeah.
where the and that's where the trouble began.
You know, I wanted to ask you, since you're a minister, a theological question that I've struggled with, because growing up Catholic, of course, I lived through the Satanic Panic as a child and all of that stuff, but um, we were cautioned so strongly to stay away from everything from heavy metal to Ouija boards, tarot cards, books on the occult, uh, because it was all demonic. And also, as a Christian or a Catholic, it's sort of against the rules to do any sort of divination or necromancy, speaking to the dead, mediums, any of that kind of stuff is expressly forbidden. And yet, Solomon built his temple with demons. And I've always struggled with that from a theological perspective, because if we're all supposed to stay away from demons and it's forbidden to communicate with demons, try to command a demon or enter pacts with demons, then why would God send one of his prophets? I suppose Solomon could be considered a prophet, a ring to control demons, and let Solomon use demons for his own,
Well,
whatever.
God does not employ demons. God doesn't use demons. They actually are working against God. That story about Solomon and the temple was built by men, not demons. That's folklore, Jewish folklore. But let me
Okay,
say
well, that
this.
makes sense.
Let me say this.
Sure.
When you deal with Ouija boards, any kind of necromancy stuff like that, and sometimes tarot cards, whatever the situation is, you got to remember this. It's not the cards, it's not the board, it's not the. What you're basically doing is opening a spiritual doorway to these forces, and they're on the other side waiting. Okay, because you don't know what's going to come through that doorway. Just like if you go to your door tonight and you open it up, you don't know who's on the other side of that door. You better know. You better be careful and make sure you know who's on the other side. But they don't know when they open these spiritual doors. And I've been to places where these doors have been open and left open. Weird, freaky, bad stuff happens. Okay, some of these are murder sites. Some are suicide sites. Some of these places where dark rituals have taken place. The evil still remains there. The door is still open. I've had to close these doors, and I know. Okay, that these people leave doors open. That's what you do with a Ouija board. That's how the very first beginnings of the actual true case of the exorcism, the Exorcist, the movie, began with a Ouija board use.
Yeah,
Okay.
his aunt gave him a Ouija board, and it was a boy, not a
Mm,
girl, in the true
mm,
story of that
yeah.
exorcism. Yeah.
Well, I talked to William Blatty not long before he died. I asked him about that, and he's the one that wrote the Exorcist. And I said, "Tell me about that." He said, "Well, I'm going to tell you this. This is one statement he made to me." He said, "When I began to write the Exorcist, I didn't believe in any of that stuff. Okay." I said, "Now I believe. The end of the book, I believe."
That's pretty
And that's what
interesting.
this will do to you. It will make a believer out of you. Because you run into this stuff, you know what you're dealing with. And these people foolishly open doorways, spiritual doorways. What do they think is waiting on the other side? When you contact somebody out there, when you talk to somebody out there, who do you think you're really talking to? You better know. You better know and be very careful who it is you're communicating with. That's why the Bible warns against that so much, because you don't know who you're talking to. Some have spoken with angels, some have spoken with devils.
I'm sure some have spoken with devils pretending to still be angels as well. There's some
Exactly.
precedents
Exactly.
for that.
I had a psychic medium one time tell me, and I was interested. I was interviewing her. I was asking her, I said, "Well, tell me where you get this information." And the demonic has preternatural knowledge. They're not just intelligent like you and I are. They have preternatural. They have supernatural knowledge.
Sure.
They're not
Yeah.
normal like us. They are supernatural beings. We got to remember that. And that's we use that word paranormal and supernatural interchangeably when we shouldn't, because paranormal means just barely above normal, abnormal, but supernatural means far above the natural. That's what that means. Um, anyway, a lot of times people don't understand what they're dealing with. So I asked this lady, I said, "Tell me about how you contact." She said, "Well, my spirit guide. I talk to my spirit guide, and it tells me this." And I said, "Well, who is your spirit guide?" She said, "Well, that's my spirit guide." I said, "Well, how do you know that's your spirit? Did it tell you that?" She said, "Oh, yeah, it told me that it was my spirit guide."
Could be anything. She could be talking to
I,
anything. Yeah.
it could have told you anything. You'd believe it, right? Some people want to believe. Listen, here's the point, Stephen. Some people want to believe so bad they'll believe anything, no matter even if it is a lie. They'll believe it anyway.
Well, that's pretty interesting. Now, what about the cryptid creatures that you've investigated? What kind of stuff did you get into with that? Maybe if we can put demons aside for a moment and talk about some of the cryptid stuff that you've
Uh,
been into and investigated, and what have you found in that world that you found interesting?
I've actually seen Bigfoot up close. There is a
Really?
Bigfoot. He does exist, without a doubt. One night in the forest, I got a good quick look at him, and it wasn't a
Okay.
bear. It wasn't a bear. It wasn't even, I've been in the forest a lot of times. Spent a lot of time. I used to do hunting and all that. I know what bears and panthers and all that look like, and there are some black panthers out there too, by the way, folks. A lot of that's associated with witchcraft, by the way. They are the familiars of witchcraft. A lot of times, these phantom black cats, um, and I'm talking about big cats, not little house cats. But I actually saw Bigfoot one night very quickly, and he disappeared almost supernaturally. I don't know how. I still haven't figured out how it disappeared, but I saw it for just a moment. I was out in the way out deep in the forest. You don't know how dark it gets till you go out in the forest, away from lights and everything else. It's pretty
Oh,
dark.
I know. I got
And
a cabin in the mountains. I know. Yeah.
it was so dark that I was using a night vision scope, and I'd been scanning the woods around me, and I heard noises. I heard some noises going on. But I had sent two guys on my team out, one this way and one that way, and we did the tiger flush routine. You know how they used to hunt tigers? They would send a group out to kind of flush the tigers towards you, so you could shoot them. That's the way they used to do tiger hunts. Well, I did that, and these were supposed to send, and they actually did send something up my way. It came my way, but I was standing up doing the night scope thing, looking around, and if you've ever used a night scope, it will hurt your eyes after a while. And
Sure.
I was kind
Yeah.
of resting my eye for just a moment, and that's, of course, that's when something happens. And take the scope down, but I saw it, and I saw the movement, and I brought the scope back up just in time to see him go behind this huge oak tree, probably, maybe I'll say 4, 6, maybe 6 yards in front of me. Very close, very close. And I seen him go behind the tree, and I jumped up and immediately ran over to the tree, and he was completely gone. I mean, there's no way. I looked up the tree. I looked for a hole in the ground. There was no way anything possibly could have got away from me down through that forest, through the scrub brush and everything, without me seeing it. You tell me where he went. I still haven't figured it out. But
Yeah, I
I
know, but
saw him
that
very
that brings
plainly.
up
I
an
saw his
interesting
arm.
question because
He had
Gooby
long
Baxton
black.
asks, "Are you saying that Bigfoot is a physical creature or a spiritual manifestation?"
That's why I said I still don't. The jury's still out on that. I really can't say for sure. Is he flesh and blood? Sometimes I believe he is. Sometimes I believe he can be other things as well. Because there was no way any kind of an animal could have got away from me. in through that forest without me seeing it. And, you know, a lot of people said, oh, it could have been somebody with a costume on. Well, if somebody could run through the forest in the dark of night without a flashlight and a mask on, then I'll give them an Academy Award, okay? Because there's no way, I don't think you could humanly possibly do that without breaking your neck, you know? I mean,
Yeah,
it
and I'm a
wasn't
little.
anybody. It wasn't anything
I
like that.
love
It was the
Bigfoot,
real
but
thing.
I'm a little skeptical of Bigfoot being a real physical, like the people that think it's an unknown primate out there in the forest somewhere. I think we would have seen it or discovered it by now. But then again, they just discovered a whole new sort of species of giant chimpanzees a few years ago in the Congo that we never knew existed. So who
I'll tell you.
knows what's
I'm gonna tell
possible
you
out there?
something. There's something else even about people that get hung up on evidence. Okay, you and I could have our picture taken tomorrow with Bigfoot or Dogman, and nobody's ever gonna believe it. We could have a perfect picture, perfect selfie. Nobody's ever going to believe us. And here's what I tell the people, okay, about evidence. They're always wanting the evidence. Look at this. Look at that. Look what I found. Look what I found. Look at this. That's okay if that's what you want to do, okay? But that's not what it's all about because most 9.5 times out of 10, nobody's ever going to believe what you produce, okay? There's always going to be critics, people that doubt. That's not what it's all about. Not finding the evidence. The only thing that the evidence is good for is to give you an understanding of it. You can't make other people understand anything. You know, John Wayne had a saying one time. My responsibility is what I say. Your responsibility is how you hear it. Well, that's the way it goes with evidence too, you know. And if you waste a lot of your time trying to prove something with evidence, you're probably wasting your time. But I know, and that's all that matters. I know, you know, the things that I know, I know. I don't know if I ever get you to believe it, but things I know because I saw them.
Sure. Oh well, it's
Yeah.
still interesting to talk about people's experiences to me, even if they, you know, many people, so-called experiencers, they have their experience. They don't have, you know, reams of evidence that they could show you to prove what they
Mhm.
experienced is what they really
Mhm.
experienced. That's part of the
Oh
high
yeah.
strangeness aspect. And then, yeah, I wanted to ask you about high strangeness because I think many people who experience some strange paranormal events experience this thing called high strangeness. Can you talk about what is high
Mhm.
strangeness and why is it so often accompanying paranormal experiences?
Well, I've always explained high strangeness this way. There's weird, and then there's really, really weird, and that's high strangeness.
Yes.
Okay, that's the way it goes. It gets very weird. Like what happened after me with my UFO experience when I saw a black triangular UFO, by the way, one day. I mean, I was close enough to hit it with a rock. Okay, it was huge, the size of a football field, and absolutely silent, and it kind of glowed a little bit, had sort of a purplish glow to it. I saw it go right over my head. It had to be making 1,000 miles an hour at least, as fast as it was moving out. I've had blue angels go over my head, so I know how fast this thing was
Oh yeah,
tracking.
me too. I used to go to McGuire Air Force Base every year. They had an air show at McGuire Air Force Base in New Jersey. My father was a big aircraft guy. He was a helicopter mechanic in
Hmm.
Vietnam. And so he was big into aircraft. We went to the air show every year, and I saw the Blue Angels and the Thunderbirds. They would
Hmm.
vary them, you know. And I was there when they had that huge crash that happened too with the Blue
Oh
Angels.
yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm. I
yeah.
had them go over my head so close one day, Steve, and it shook the very ground I was standing on. I mean, it just vibrated. It was amazing to feel that much power from a machine, you know. But here's the thing about it. What happened afterwards, I said, I was living the Mothman Prophecy. That was even another echelon of high strangeness. I mean, my phone, I had the weirdest phone calls. I had government cars buzzing my house. I've had black helicopters buzz my house. I had my mail tampered with. I had people out in my yard.
Wow.
I had the works, and they followed me around some different places all over town. I walked out of a department store one night, and they were sitting out in the parking lot. And I started towards them. I said, I'm going to talk to them. You know, I'm going to go. Well, as we say in the South, I was going to tell them about Jesus. Okay. I mean, you know, I was going to go talk to them. And they drove off, you know. But um, just weird, freaky stuff like that. That's high strangeness. That's part of it.
Well, back to your
Very much
UFO
like
experience, did you think it was like a military aircraft or a secret black budget craft, or did you think it was alien, or did you get some sense
uh,
of what you thought about
here's
what it
all I
is that
can
you
say.
saw?
I've had people ask me that over the years, and like I say, I did a report, sent it to MUFON, and I found out several years later they never got the report.
Well, that's weird.
Okay, they never got the report. Where did it go to? I think it went to the government because that's when the government cars started, the helicopters and all that. But let me say this: what I
Well,
saw that day.
Bigelow was buying MUFON
If
reports and giving them
we
to the government.
if we've got what I saw that day, if we've got that, we could take over the world tomorrow. Then nobody would stand in our way. Okay, we could knock Russia and China off of the map. I don't believe it's ours. I just don't have that feeling that we've got that kind of technology. I don't know who it belongs to or where it came from. That's all I can say. I just don't believe it's ours. But it had a very militaristic kind of a feel to it. But who's military, I don't know.
Yeah, that's kind of a weird thing. The triangles. I don't know. According to Edgar Fouché, those are ours, but they were made from technology that we got from the others or the visitors somehow.
Uh-huh.
This mass
Uh-huh.
cancellation device that makes it super light, so it doesn't need much fuel or propulsion.
Uh-huh.
Could very well be. I kind of believe in Occam's razor. The simplest explanation is probably true. So maybe what you saw was a top secret military thing that you weren't supposed
Okay.
to see.
And here's
But
something else. Here's another thing we could think about. And there are many questions to the UFO mystery. Okay, but here's another thought. What if the UFOs that we are seeing, and there's so many different types of them, by the way, what if most of these are like vehicles from the future?
yeah, I've heard that as an explanation for UFOs many times. It's
Uh-huh.
aliens, it's interdimensional beings, or perhaps it's future humans. And that's an
Right.
even stranger thing to think about because why would they be traveling back here and letting people see them? You would think that that would disrupt the timeline somehow or
And
pollute it.
some of them may be from inner Earth. We don't know what's below our feet right now. There's a whole nother world down there. There could be anything down there. There could be
You
other
believe in that as
civilizations for all
well?
we know.
You think
Yeah.
so? Like the honeycomb Earth people or
Hmm.
the Admiral Byrd thing? Like he flew into a hole and went to some kind
Yeah.
of inner Earth other civilization?
So they say. I've
Yeah, I'm not
also heard
sure
that
about that stuff.
that the Nazis also have a base in the Antarctic that we don't know about or something. That's where they actually came up with flying saucers to begin with. And here's an interesting thing. I was telling somebody about this the other day. You remember the incident of the UFO in Kicksburg? You know Kicksburg.
Yes, I did a whole
When they
series on that.
supposedly recovered that, put it on a flatbed, and it had a bell shape. Looked very much like the Nazi bell craft. Makes you wonder.
Yeah, well, it also bore a striking resemblance to the Cosmos Russian satellite that came down around the same time. And many people think that that's why the government grabbed it because it was the height of the Cold War. And
Uh-huh.
if a Russian satellite came down, they would want to grab it and rip it apart and see what kind of
Could have been that
technology the
too.
Russians. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah, very interesting. So, somebody asked earlier, can an earthbound spirit pretend to be a demon just like a demon can pretend to be an earthbound spirit?
Yeah. There are a class of demons that are really elemental spirits. Okay. They are tied since they have. Let's look at the demons this way. Okay, they are the true aliens. They are the real aliens. They don't belong here. We do. We are people of Earth. We were formed out of the Earth, so to speak. We belong to the Earth. Earth is our mother. But they don't belong here. They are the true aliens, whether angels or fallen angels, whatever the case may be. They're still aliens. They're not Earth beings. Uh, Yet, when some of them supposedly came here, they tried to form a relationship with the Earth. That's where you get Earth, wind, water, air, fire, and all this other stuff. They are the elemental spirits. They use these elements and take power from these elements. And they have a bond with these elements. That's why they become elementals. They can be some of the most dangerous spirits of all, by the way, because they have a very distinct power base to them. They have a power base of the earth. Think about lightning, how much very powerful lightning. Where does it start? It doesn't start in the clouds. Where does it start? It starts on earth. It's power of the earth. It goes up into the sky and comes back down. The earth has a tremendous amount of power in it. And these, like we said earlier about these spirits using and draining people in battery packs, they also take power from the very earth itself. Those are elementals.
Yeah, I've kind of heard things and read things about that, and some spirits frequent certain places where
Mhm.
there is some sort of ley lines or points of
Water.
power of the earth, water. Yeah, yeah,
Water water magnifies power too, by the way. Water has its own power, but it magnifies it too. If you've ever been sunburned while you've been swimming, you know what I'm talking about here. It has a magnification property to it.
yeah. You can get
That's another
sunburned
thing.
while fully submerged in water. You can get sunburned
Hmm.
bad. Yeah.
Exactly. And we're so much of us is water, you know. Think about that. We have a bond, we have a tie with that as well. We have inherent electricity in our bodies, you know. You ever walk on a carpet on a winter day and touch
Oh,
somebody else?
sure. Yeah. Oh, I used to live in a house that needed a humidifier badly. Every time you touched a doorknob, you'd get the shock of your life. So, yeah, I've
Mm-hmm.
seen that happen. I was just speaking to a Catholic priest who is involved in exorcisms, and I wanted to ask your opinion of a statement that he said. He said that um, all of these evil things that we are seeing on earth is, in his opinion at least, is due to increase in demonic power and activity on earth. In other words, mass shootings, increases in war, increases in addiction to various things from drugs to pornography,
Mm-hmm.
sex trafficking, and all these other evil things that are going on are increasing, not getting better. And he thinks that's due to demonic influence. And he went as far as to say that all demons of hell have been let loose on the earth recently by, I suppose, by Lucifer in a last ditch attack on humanity. Do you believe there's an increase in demonic activity in recent years? And if so, why?
Well, you got to remember what Shakespeare said: "Hell is empty; the demons are here with us." And here's the thing we used to say in law enforcement: it's one thing to get shot at; it's another thing when you gave them the bullets. And that's the demonic. We are giving them the bullets, the ammunition to use against us because we're being human, unfortunately. And like I said earlier about that human evil, we're helping these things. And there are certain forces in this world, governmental forces, I won't name any names, that are in league with these dark forces. These humans are selling us out to the demons, okay? They're in together, they're in cahoots together. They're all connected up. It's a network, okay? And they want to use this stuff, Stephen, against us, to turn us against each other. Hatred, racial hatred, whatever kind of hatred they can foster. They want to use it against us so that we can use it against ourselves. That's the way demons work. You know, I'm going to say this, and I've talked about this before. There is such a thing as demonic murder, but it's very rare. The demons will actually come out and kill someone. There's a very powerful demons that will do that, but it's kind of rare. It doesn't happen a lot. But usually when that happens, you will see the head turn completely around backwards, looking back over the back. You know that's usually somewhat of a demonic murder thing there.
You would think.
But usually,
Wait, turned all the way around backwards like the movie
yeah,
Exorcist? That's pretty
that's the way.
freaky. Yeah, that would be
Yeah,
a sign of something strange
that's the
going
way they
on.
work. They
Backwards
completely
head on
break the
a.
neck, the head all the way around. But most of the time, they get you to kill yourself. That's how cowardly they are. They turn you against your own self. Okay, they make you your own worst enemy. And that's the way they work on human beings. And that's what you see happening in the world around you. And it's increasing. And I'll tell you why it's increasing. I think there are several factors. One, they know their time is getting short. Okay, they know that without a doubt. They're working overtime, punching the overtime card. They know their time's getting short. The time is coming, and people across the world, Stephen, in every religion, whatever their persuasion, even atheists, will tell you something is coming. Something bad is coming down the line. Something's coming. And I think it's all connected with that. But let me say this, there are other factors too. Since they've been playing around with CERN, we're talking about demons more now than we ever have before. That's why we don't like to say their names, because that gets their attention. And you don't want these guys' attention if you can help it. You don't want to call them to you by calling their names. We don't do that. That's sort of an unwritten, it's kind of an unwritten
No, I
rule of
wasn't aware of that,
demonology.
but I'll keep it in mind just to be safe. And also, a question from the audience: The Sixth Sense says, "Question, Dennis, if there is one thing that concerns you most about demons, what might that be?"
Is their ability to deceive us so well. They're so good at tricking us into believing things. You remember that old expression, the road to hell is paved with good intentions,
Sure.
and they're very good at misrepresenting things, and the people that are in league with them are misrepresenting things. That's just like saying, "Oh, I'm such and such," but I'm telling a lie about it, or I'm hypocritical about it. I say, "Don't do this," but I do it anyway myself. Um, I think a certain celebrity the other day was out against Bud Light, and they found him drinking Bud Light or something. But anyway, that's being a hypocrite. Okay, uh, don't do that. Okay, but that's the way they want you to go, and that's the way they want you to roll. And they're so very good at deceiving us. That's what concerns me the most. They're experts at deceiving.
Yeah, and Amy Collins is bringing something up that since you're an expert on demons and demonology, I would like to ask you myself. Amy says, "I'd love to hear the CERN generated demon theory explained more. Back up the truck." I don't know if you've heard this, but many people are saying that the increase in demons and demonic activity and evil on Earth has something to do with what they're doing at CERN, opening portals to hell or some strangeness like
Um,
that. Are you familiar with that? And can you talk about that and what you believe about
yeah,
that?
I think CERN is a very evil thing. I think it is opening some doorways that should be best left closed. Mankind is always trying to play God. That's why I call my book the God game. We're guilty of it just as much as the demons are. Okay. We are trying to play that God game, but it never ends good. Look at Frankenstein's story. What happened with that? When we play this game, and you play it for keeps, folks, bad things are going to happen. And CERN is one of those things. And by the way, it has a symbol of a whirlwind. The symbol of CERN is like three sixes or three or four sixes together, but it looks like a whirlwind. There's a Bible passage in there. They shall reap the whirlwind, and we're going to reap only some bad things out of some of this stuff when we play God. Okay, that's just the way it's going to go. And I think CERN is responsible for a lot of that. And just the other day, I was reading they're looking for the God particle. Guess what they found while they were looking for the God particle? They found the demon particle.
Oh, that's interesting. Well, I guess if you're going to have one, you're going to have another. Philosophical
You go
zombie
do
with
some research on that. It's very interesting. The
yeah,
demon
we'll do.
particle.
Philosophical zombie with an interesting question. This is maybe a tough one for you. What is your methodology for identifying and studying demons? Your understanding of different cultural interpretations of demons and how you distinguish between folklore and evidence-based claims.
A lot of evidence I've seen with my own eyes, of course. That's the best thing. When you're out in the field, spiritual warfare cannot be fought from a desk. It has to be fought out in the field. And
Well,
spiritual
that makes
warfare is
sense.
a very real thing, by the way. Although it can be fought at home, definitely. But I'm talking about real, actual spiritual warfare. It has to be fought out in the field against these forces of darkness. You see the results of a lot of that. But some of this stuff is self explanatory, but I've always taken demonology from a more scholarly point of view. The more information I can get on it, the more knowledge I can get on it, beyond superstition and folklore. But they can be pointers, they can help you in many ways. Superstitions, folklore can point you to the ways you need to think about. But just take, for instance, mirrors. fascinating subject. We've talked about this not long ago. We have a discussion about vampires being able to see their reflections in mirror. That's Hollywood, okay? They can't. I believe they can see this. Let me tell you. Let me tell you something that demons absolutely hate, even beyond holy water and sea salt. They absolutely hate mirrors.
Really? Why
Why?
is that? Well, yeah, why is that?
Why is that? Because they can actually, like I told you about seeing one before, they can actually see their own true selves in the mirror, and they don't want to see that because it's horrible. Okay, believe me, folks, horrible. Don't even begin to describe it. They don't want to see themselves. Would you want to see yourself? Think about it. I mean, they don't want to see
Not if
themselves.
I'm
They
having a
hate
bad day.
mirrors.
Yeah, not if I'm having a slob day. Yeah.
Although,
Well, would
they
they
do
be?
use from time to time, they use mirrors to get what they want, but they
Yeah,
do
I was
not
going to
want to
ask,
see themselves
wouldn't
in
they
mirrors.
not want to see themselves because they started out as beautiful angelic creatures and then they
Exactly,
became
exactly.
something else
Yeah,
after the
they
fall?
have. The Bible says they are reserved under everlasting chains of darkness. They are no longer the beings that they were, beautiful and perfect and holy. They are now corrupt and ugly and disgusting. I call them spiritual termites, demons, or pests.
Oh, that kind of makes sense. Last
Mm.
question from B. Baker here. Has he read any H.P. Lovecraft? What does he think of the idea of elder gods and cosmic alien horror?
I love Lovecraft. He was great. I love him and Poe. They were two of my favorites.
Yeah,
But I
Mountains of
think
Madness, Call of Cthulhu.
Lovecraft had
Yeah.
a very good imagination, and he was very cosmic about these things. But if you look at Lovecraft real close, there is a very distinct correlation between the elder gods and demons. And what did I say earlier about demons? Okay, they are egomaniacs. They want us to worship them like gods. They want to be gods among men. They
Well, at
have been
times
in the
they have,
past.
though, right?
They have
Baal and
been
all
in the
these. Yeah.
past.
Yeah.
hmm hmm They've
Yeah.
done that in the past. Look at where all the supposed gods, like the Greek gods and the Roman gods and the Viking gods and all these other gods worshipped throughout the world, mainly may have been the images that the demons put forth to get men to worship them, because that's what they're all about. They're egomaniacs. They love that narcissism, you know.
Yeah, I wanted to mention because we're running out of time here, but you said that you're going to be working on a new book. Can you tell us a little bit about what you're putting in the new book that you're working on, and what have you been
Well,
working on most recently?
the God game is the main one I'm working on right now, which is in what's happening within the world today. And the reason I call it the God game because it involves several factors. It involves cloning, it involves AI, it involves robotics. Think about this a minute, Stephen. If you had all the power in the world, all the money and the prestige, everything your heart desires, but you got to die one day and leave it. What was the one thing that you would want to have above all else? Immortality.
Immortality. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
and that's what this God game is all about. Immortality. And if they could download your personality, your intellect into a robot that would live forever, there you go. You would
Yeah, but I've
become a
always thought
god, would you not?
that would just be a copy of me. It wouldn't really have my soul
Well,
and my
here's the thing
spirit and my
about it.
essence.
Here's the thing about it. If we could download you or clone you, whatever the case may be, where does your soul go? Where's your soul at? You know, that's the thing about it. So are you creating soulless people here, just like the Frankenstein monster was? Okay. You're creating monsters, not humans. You're corrupting what God instituted to begin with. God made humans. You're just making copies of them and imperfect copies of them. Okay, just like the demons I talked about earlier do when they try to put forth these images. They're imperfect.
Yeah, I guess you're right. Well, listen, when you finish your new book, you're welcome to come back. We had an interesting first conversation here. I appreciate you
All
taking
right,
the time to do this. Thanks very much, Mr. Carroll,
all right,
and
all
we'll
right.
keep in touch. Okay,
Okay, and
I'm
you
gonna
might want
turn
to tune into
around
my
here.
you might want to tune into my show Demonology Day. It's on every Sunday night, 9 o'clock p.m. Can be found on YouTube. And then I have
Yeah, just
another
search for Demonology Today. I just found it, but we'll put the
Demonology
link in
Today.
the description of the video as well
Okay.
here.
And
the
then I also
podcast.
have another show. It comes on Wednesday nights at 9 o'clock p.m. on YouTube. It's called Hunting the Shadows. I think you watched some episodes of that. I think maybe you might have
Yeah,
seen some.
yeah, I have in preparation for today. Yeah, yeah, and
Mm-hmm.
I found the Demonology Today, so we'll put that in the description of the video so people can find you, and they can also get your books by just searching your name on the Amazon search bar.
Mm-hmm. Amazon or Barnes and Noble, either one. Just put Dennis Carroll in there.
Okay, all right, great. Well, thanks, Mr. Carroll. You have a great evening.
It's been a pleasure.
All right, thanks, Mr. Carroll. All right, well, that was very interesting, friends, and a departure from our usual focus on certain things. I think we can expect more of that going forward, and we want to thank each and every one of you for joining us, our kind and generous benefactors, you Patreon supporters, Twitch subscribers, YouTube channel members, PayPal pledgers. We're going to take a short break, and when we return, we'll take comments and questions from the live chat. And we'll do a wrap-up of sorts. So we will take a moment to remind you that we, too, are a viewer-supported show. And we exist through the kindness and generosity and support of our viewers. The show's not over. I've got a little more time to share with you, and we'll be happy to do that. Get your questions or comments for me ready. Please put them in all capital letters, and we'll be back in a moment to answer those. Read any remaining super chats, the PayPal pledges. We'll be right back, friends.
Truthseekers is a viewer-supported show. Wonderful people like you who enjoy this show send pledges in the form of super chats, super stickers, super thanks, PayPal, or Cash App. Instructions for how to help are in the description. You can also join our Patreon, and for as little as $1 a month you can get extra content. Patreon supporters get a backstage pass, early access to all our production videos before they are distributed publicly, Stephen Cambion's music, private writings, a monthly show journal, and more. You can also become a YouTube channel member for $5 a month. A YouTube membership includes all of the Patreon benefits, plus a special members badge, priority reply to video comments, and the live chat, plus a monthly members-only video. We thank you all, kind and generous benefactors, for supporting Truthseekers. Thank you for your generosity and support. Truthseekers is a viewer-supported show. Now there's a great way to support these broadcasts and show your support. Please be sure and check out our merchandise store. Links to our 2 merchandise online stores are in the links to this video or podcast. The Amazon storefront ships super quickly in the United States, Great Britain, and in many more places. Amazon may not ship to your country or location. If that's the case, hit our second merchandise link in the description and visit our Redbubble storefront. Merchandise from our Redbubble storefront ships worldwide, but may take longer than Amazon. We've got a great deal of super high quality merchandise for you to choose from, including t-shirts, phone cases, sweatshirts, and even pillows. The feedback from our products have been overwhelmingly great. Quality products and fast shipping. People all over the world are buying some merchandise and showing their support of the show. Praise the cash. Praise the cash. Praise the cash. We thank you all, kind and generous benefactors, who are buying some merchandise and helping us to continue this journey. Thanks for being here. This is Truthseekers with your host, Stephen Cambion. Please rate, like and comment on our videos or podcasts. If you are listening to an audio podcast, please rate us 5 stars to help us rise in the search rankings. If you are watching on YouTube, please like, comment and subscribe to our channel. If you're listening to an audio podcast, we love and appreciate you listeners, but you are missing the live tapings. All our shows are recorded live with video feed. We'd love you to come be a part of our live broadcasts and tapings for the podcast. Head on over to YouTube, click the search tool, the little magnifying glass, put Truthseekers, one word in the search bar, and hit enter. You'll see a strange and mysterious guy with sunglasses. That means you found the channel. Go there, smash the subscribe button, and hit the notification bell to receive up-to-date info on our YouTube channel. We welcome you to be a part of our live taping and our chat room during the live broadcasts. Seek the truth. Speak the truth. This is Truthseekers. Truthseekers.
Okay, greetings and salutations, friends. So we are back, and I'll be taking some comments and questions. Please put them in all capital letters. It makes it easy for me to identify those, and we'll read any remaining super chats. For those unaware, we read every super chat and read every PayPal pledge. If you send a PayPal pledge, instructions are in the description of the video. Just add a note and give us your chat room user ID and any message you want us to read on air for you, and we will do that. Terry Brown, who's also a member, thanks for 2 things: a kind and generous $5 super chat and a being a member. Says, thanks, Stephen. Always a great show. Yeah, a little different. I want to veer off into other topics, but still stay in the paranormal realm mostly. But thank you, Terry Brown, for your kindness, generosity, and your support of the show. It is much, much appreciated. And we thank all of you who are helping us, of course, to praise the cash. Much, much appreciated. We have been praising the cash better than ever before lately. So we're going to thank every one of you for helping us to praise the cash, friends.
Praise the cash. 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 Praise the cash.
We are praising it. We're praising it so much that people are crying that I'm selling too many t-shirts, and it's really, really affecting them. And it makes them cry and make shitty Rumble videos where they complain about me for, making a couple of dollars here. We're just praising the cash too hard for some people. But thank you, Terry Brown, for your kindness, generosity, and support. Complizert says, Truthseekers, did you know they did a remake of the movie The Grudge? It's called The Grush. No, I think The Grudge was a better movie than The Grush movie. The Grush movie so far is, big claims and no evidence. Melvin O'Brien says, the guest is not a journalist nor a researcher. Stephen is both. Well, I would kind of beg to differ. I'm ordering his books. To be very honest with you, I had another guest planned for tonight, and the guest canceled at the last minute. Well, canceled yesterday. But still, I want to thank Thin Lizzie Borden, who's quickly becoming our new guest booker. Lizzie said, well, I can get you some guests to fill in for the one who canceled. And I said, do it. So Thin Lizzie Borden, if you love tonight's guest, you can thank Thin Lizzie Borden. And if you didn't like tonight's guest, then I'll just blame her. And I will have no responsibility for those of you who did not like that. I understand what people are saying about evidence. And if you want evidence of demonic activity and demonic possession and oppression and things like that, we're going to be having a Catholic exorcist who is a real expert, and he started out as an extreme skeptic, even believing that there was no such thing as demonic exorcism at one point, I believe. Quickly changed his mind when confronted with the demonic reality. I also saw, Melvin, a few people saying, oh, we don't believe in aliens, but we believe in demons. I never said I don't believe in aliens. In fact, I would think that the universe in some places is probably teeming with intelligent life. There's probably hundreds, thousands of other species that have evolved intelligent life and consciousness somewhere out there in the universe. Just the law of chance would have to indicate that there has to be aliens or other intelligent species somewhere in the universe. I truly believe that. What I don't believe is UFO and alien-based grifters who are always selling fake stories with fake evidence. That's not proof to me of aliens. That's proof that someone really wants to believe that aliens are real and even visiting planet Earth, but the evidence of which is usually pretty weak. Amy Collins says, for a species that can barely manage waste disposal or take care of its own, we would not be wise to judge other races out there too quickly. Yeah, I totally agree with you. Victor Wag says, what about the Grush that stole Congress? Yeah, I think that the UFO Grift Squad, Victor Wag, did a terrible thing just now because they literally sent a mental patient to testify before Congress, which embarrasses Congress wasting, quote, their time on this issue. And now you've got members of Congress saying, we're not doing any more hearings. It's a waste of time. Why is it a waste of time? Because you've got a mental patient who claims he's a whistleblower, but he can't give you any evidence in an open session of Congress, right? I think that they have really, really overpromised and underdelivered this time. And if no evidence shakes out from the Grush claims, it's going to be a very, very long time before Congress will do another hearing about this stuff, and especially invite people to make wild claims like, we have alien bodies and we have alien spacecraft, but I can't talk about it in an open session of Congress because it's classified, even though the DoD cleared me to talk about alien bodies and alien crash retrieval programs, so therefore it can't be classified. The whole situation with Grush is pretty ridiculous. And we have to acknowledge and understand that we're going on 90 days now where he hasn't proved any of his claims. So how long are we giving Grush to prove his claims? 6 months? A year? It's going to take 5 years before we find out that all of his claims are fake, kind of like Elizondo? I don't want to wait 5 years, so I say either he drops the evidence or he's full of shit. That's where I'm at with Grush. And with everybody pushing and promoting Grush, we have detailed here. You can check our other coverage. All of the people that are promoting from and especially profiting from Grush have all been caught selling 100% provably fake stories about UFOs and aliens before. Therefore, the trust me, dude, school of things is not going to work here. You need to come up with evidence, or you need to sit down and shut the hell up. And we want to thank Real Steel Rumblehead for a kind and generous $2 super chat asking, Stephen, your thoughts on the flat earth theory. Well, here's what I can tell you. I've been at a very high altitude in an airplane and saw the curvature of the earth myself. Therefore, I just don't believe in flat earth theory whatsoever. I think it's kind of a ridiculous thing that we're in 2023 and people are going back to what I consider the scientific Stone Age when people believed the earth was flat. I think there's no evidence. Experiments have been done to prove that can't be right. Even some flat earthers have spent an awful lot of money trying to prove that was the case and prove themselves wrong, but then wouldn't accept the results of their own experiments. You can get a high altitude balloon and put a camera on it, and it can go up high enough to see the curvature of the earth. So, while I love almost all conspiracy theories, that one I stay away from. I just stay away from it, because those people are totally convinced they're right. They won't prove it. And I always say, prove it. Get in a boat, go to the end of the earth, show us the ice wall. But they never seem to do that. So I have very little. There's two conspiracy theory kind of major subject matters that I completely avoid, and that would be Q and flat earth theory. But we thank you for your kindness, generosity, and support, Real Steel Rumblehead. Continuing supporter of the show, much, much appreciated. So Unknown Sender says, should have questioned the guest about the Holy Spirit, the hinderer of lawlessness. Yeah, I'm going to have to research. Somebody else made a claim that the Holy Spirit is only mentioned twice in the New Testament and is not a separate entity. It's just another name or manifestation for God. And, also from a theological perspective, the Trinity has always bothered me, because, I did 12 years of Catholic school and theology classes and scripture study and Bible study, and all my teachers were nuns and priests and brothers, and nobody could ever adequately explain the Trinity to me. I don't understand how somebody could be the Father, the Son, and another person, but it's all one God. The nearest I can come to understanding of it is just it's three forms of the same one God, but it's very confusing. And throughout my life in Catholic school, I have over and over again questioned every theology teacher I had to explain it to me. And when really pressed, a theology or religion is theology, a religion teacher will cop out, and they will say it's one of the divine mysteries, and you're human. You're not meant to understand it. You just have to accept it and have faith. Okay, so you can't explain it. That's what you're telling me. And I've also always had this problem with, especially Catholics claim that we are monotheistic, meaning that we worship one God. But you've got three gods, and then it gets even more complicated, because just God himself is three persons of God: God the Father, God the Son, and the Holy Spirit, which I guess you could understand as three forms of one God. But like I said, it gets complicated, because God gave the world his only Son. Well, that would indicate that it's not him, it's his Son, but it's still supposed to be all the same God. It's very confusing. And like I said, Catholics will tell you it's a divine mystery. Where I have a further problem with Catholics, especially claiming that they are monotheistic, which means we worship one God. Well, if we worship one God, then why are we saying prayers to the Blessed Mother, Mary, the mother of Jesus, the human mother of Jesus? This makes no sense to me. And of course, there is a conflict with the one commandment. I am the Lord your God. You should have no gods before me, which means you shouldn't pray to any other God, according to some Christian-based faith beliefs. And I'm aware of some Protestant denominations of Christianity who almost expressly forbid you to pray to Mary or the Blessed Mother, or especially to pray to saints. In the Catholic religion and traditions, it is very common to pray to a saint. Like, what problem are you having? Have you lost something you can't find? Say the prayer to Saint Anthony and you'll find it. And God, I got to tell you that prayer works for me. It's stupid. Will you lose your keys or something? You're looking around the house and you can't find them. You say that prayer, Saint Anthony, please come down. Something is lost and cannot be found. It sounds stupid that you would go to try it. The next time you lose something and you can't find it and you look around your house for it, say the Saint Anthony prayer. Saint Anthony, something is lost and cannot be found. Please come down. I don't know why, but it works for me. Or maybe it's just while I'm saying that prayer in my head, I think of other places to look and then I find them. I don't know. My point is the Catholics, we pray not only to God the Father, God the Son, Jesus, and the Holy Spirit. We also pray to Mary, the Mother of God, the Blessed Mother. And we also, as Catholics, we pray to saints, especially our patron saints. And there are saints for everything. So let's say, for example, you could just put in patron saint of the sick. Let's do that one. Patron saint of the sick. There's a whole bunch of saints related to the sick that you could pray to. So if somebody is sick, you pray to Saint Louis, Saint Rafka, Saint Raphael, the Archangel, Saint Louise, Saint Catherine of Siena. And we say patron saint of hopeless cases, hopeless causes, and that would be Jude the Apostle. And that's a saint, Saint Jude. And there's whole societies that pray to Saint Jude. And again, if we're supposed to only pray to one God, wouldn't it be kind of hypocritical to pray to all these different saints? And again, you can just put in Google patron saint of animals. That would be Saint Francis of Assisi. Saint Francis was a great friar from Assisi, Italy. He is the patron saint of the environment and animals because he loved all creatures and allegedly preached to even the birds. But my point is that Catholics, if like let's say, for example, your dog is sick or has cancer or something, you pray as a Catholic. You would pray to Saint Francis of Assisi for intercession into the situation. And Catholics truly believe that this patron saint of different things works. There's patron saint. I think there's a patron saint of cancer. Yeah. If somebody you know has cancer and you're a Catholic, you pray to Saint Peregrine, the patron saint of cancer patients, well known for his holiness, but also for miraculous healing that he received. So this is some of the strangeness that I've experienced with the Catholic faith and why I'm no longer Catholic, because if we're supposed to obey the 10 commandments, and one of them is, I am the Lord your God, you shall have no gods before me, meaning don't pray to other gods, only me. And then we as Catholics are praying to all these different saints that weren't gods. They were humans that died. And according to Catholic tradition, a saint is someone who is in heaven with God. That's why the Catholic faith will determine that somebody was a saint somehow, usually through very strange methods, like, oh, their body didn't rot, that must mean they're a saint. That's a miracle. And usually there's a more earthly explanation for why the body didn't rot. I'm aware of a new case of that situation happening with a nun. And I have a story that I half did, and maybe we'll still air that. Kevin Gerhardt says, I heard the modern Catholic Church was created by Constantine, who was a known pagan that converted to Catholicism. Some say he was only converted for political reasons. Yeah, a lot of people believe that he saw Christians taking over everywhere, that Christians had taken hold of everywhere, and decided if he wanted to stay in power, he had to become Christian too. You'd have to talk to a historian, which I'm not. There are grottos with statue of the BVM all over the place here. That's about 2 miles from my home. There are people regularly praying to the statue. Yeah, the Blessed Virgin Mary. That's another one. Now, I've had that one explained to me by a Catholic priest who I know, and him I like and respect. And he said that when you pray to the Blessed Mother or the Blessed Virgin Mary, or Mary, the Mother of God, the Mother of Jesus, you're not putting Mary before God. You are praying for Mary to intercede and have Jesus do the miracle that you need, or whatever, because all mothers have influence over their children. So if you pray and appeal to the Blessed Virgin Mary for something, she will go to Jesus and plead your case for you. It's called Jesus through Mary. That makes a little more sense to me. But all this praying to the different saints, that doesn't make any sense to me. It seems like... and also, there was an attempt in the Catholic faith to create saints to replace old pagan gods. You know, there's a patron saint of fertility too, which would replace the old pagan god of fertility. Which saint is that? Patron saint of fertility. And you could say a novena. That would be Saint Gerard Majella. often called upon as the patron saint of expectant mothers, childbirth, and fertility. He was Catholic lay brother who lived in the 18th century in Italy. He was known for his dedication to helping pregnant women and his gift of healing. So, for example, if you're not conceiving, if you're trying to have a child and you're not conceiving and you're Catholic, you would pray to Saint Gerard Majella for intercession and for help in conceiving a child. And that many people believe that the early Christian church consciously looked for ways to replace pagan gods that people enjoyed praying to for different needs and wants. And the church just replaced them with a Christian equivalent and figurehead. Could be. I mean, it seems close to me. Local 556 says, I just baptized my daughter as Catholic only because my family pressuring me from tradition, but I'm not a practicing Catholic anymore. I don't know. You must have had a hard time doing that. You had to probably pony up some church envelopes or something, right? Yeah, I left the Catholic Church a long time ago when they refused to bury my father because they said that my father was not a good Catholic. I've told this story before, that the funeral director called me. My father was laying there in a casket getting ready for his funeral. And the funeral director called me. There's some problem with the church and the mass. They can't do it. And I'm like, what do you mean they can't do it? He was a volunteer at that church for 20 years. Like, he can't get a mass for a funeral? He can't get a priest to bury him from his own church? And he said, I don't know what's going on, Stephen. Maybe you could go to the rectory and talk to them. And I said, okay, I will. So I went over there, and I was told they couldn't bury my father with a Catholic mass and a priest because he wasn't a Catholic in good standing. And I was kind of puzzled by this because my father was big time Catholic. That was his whole world. He volunteered at that church for 20 years. He was at church every week. So I said, Father, I don't understand. How did you make this determination that he's not a Catholic in good standing? I'm completely confused by this. He's been a member of this church for my whole life, And the priest looked at some kind of piece of paper and he said, well, he hasn't been to church in 6 months. And I said, yeah, I know that. And you guys know that too, because he's been in a hospice for the past 6 months dying. And you even went there and administered last rites to him. So you guys should know he's been in a hospice dying for 6 months. And then the priest looked down at his shoes and he sort of said, well, he hasn't put his church envelopes in 6 months either. And I went, are you kidding me, Father? So this is just about money? And he said, well, we can't use the church's resources for somebody that's that far behind in their offerings. And I said, so let me get this straight, Father. If I just go and get you the cash that he would have given you in the past 6 months, what is it, $20 a week or something that he was giving you? And the priest looked it up and said, oh, yeah, he gave $20 a week. And I said, okay, I'll be right back. I went to the Mac machine, the ATM machine for those not from Philadelphia, and I got out $20 times 6 months, whatever that is. And I went there with this stack of 20s back to the rectory, and you're in this little waiting room, and the priest comes down from downstairs or something, There's a secretary, like a little reception area, and the priest came back down, and I had this stack of money, and I'm not kidding you, I threw it at the priest, and it went all over. And I said, my father's been a volunteer at this church for 20 years. He's always been a good Catholic. There's your blood money. Call the funeral director. Somebody's burying my father tomorrow, or I'm coming back here, and you're not going to like what I come back with. And the priest gets down on his hands and knees and starts picking up the money. And he says, okay, I'm sorry that you're upset. We'll call the funeral director. And I said, good. And I left. And they buried my father. And I never went back to church there ever again. The Catholics only care about money. They really only care about money. Victor Wag says, miraculous healing or miraculous misdiagnosis? Yeah. Mr. Ian, why are Catholic priests framed for tampering with children? Well, some of them weren't framed, and that's a whole scandal in and of itself. And if I needed any more evidence that the Catholic Church wasn't good, there was a whole bunch of cover-ups and scandals right in my hometown of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. You can look it up. They covered up all kinds of priests in Philadelphia doing that to children. In fact, right in my own church, there was a few, we'll just call them kitty touchers because YouTube doesn't like the P word. In my own church, the one that wouldn't bury my father, by the way, the Monsignor, the head priest at the church that said my father wasn't a Catholic in good standing, at the time they did that to my father and tried to not bury him because they needed him to catch up on his money gifts. He was one of the kitty touchers, we found out a few years later. And also, I was an altar boy for one of the other kitty touchers, and there was all kinds of rumors about him. And my father got me aside, and he said, you know that Father Andy, don't be alone with him, ever. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, there's a lot of rumors. Don't ever be alone with him. Don't go to the rectory with him if he asks you. Don't be alone with him. Don't ever be alone with him. And I kind of did that on, just was very cautious when I had to serve mass with that priest. And then I found out years later from one of my father's friends that my father went and gripped up that priest. He grabbed the priest by the throat and he said, my son Stephen's one of your altar boys. You ever touch him and I'm going to come back here and kill you. That's what my father did. So I was never assaulted in any way. In fact, that priest was super nice to me. And I always wondered, as a child, I said, I don't know why there's all these rumors about him being a weirdo with kids or something, because he's always been really nice to me. And there was never any weirdness or strangeness or anything like that. It's because my father threatened him. He did assault one of the other altar boys that I served mass with him, but he must have done that when I wasn't around or whatever. But my point is, even in my own church, they covered him up. They would just send the priest to another parish when one of the parents complained. It's just, they have no moral authority when they're covering up things like that, if you ask me. And Kevin says, I'm sure a lot of those kind of people use the church as a cover, knowing the church would hide anything to save their reputation. Yeah, and the other issue was that a lot of the cops in all the major cities were also Catholic. So most of the cops in Philadelphia were Catholic, raised Catholic. They're not going to go against the Catholic Church. So if the Catholic Church leaned on them and said, listen, we can't have like a public prosecution of this priest. We're going to send him to counseling and we'll deal with them. That's what the church would do. They would tell the police, if somebody called the cops on a priest, kitty toucher, they would convince the cops, like, we're going to discipline him. We're going to get him counseling. He's never going to be around children again. And the priests would cave. And then the cops would cave and let the church handle this problem priest. And then the Catholic Church would just send the priest to another church with kids and to be around kids again. They did it all the time. It's really, really, it was a huge issue. And I don't think the Catholic Church has ever recovered from that. In fact, in Philadelphia, they closed a ton of churches and a ton of schools after that big scandal hit. But interestingly, I don't think, I know that Father Andy I mentioned, he was arrested and he was prosecuted, but he had 2 hung juries, and they just gave up on trying to prosecute him. It's very hard to prosecute somebody for a sex crime that's 20 plus years old, Corporal punishment was a regular feature when I was in school. Helped build character, eh? Those were the days. Yeah, I was smacked around by a priest. I was smacked around by a nun. In fact, the one nun that I have actually hung. We were only on the first floor. When you're in first grade, it's like first floor is first, second, and third grade or something like that. And the second floor was 4th, 5th, and 6th, and the third floor was 7th and 8th or something like that. And I had a nun that beat kids all the time. And then one time, I still remember his name, this kid Billy, he was so bad. He would like yell out in class and laugh and joke and throw gummy bears at the blackboard or whatever. The nun got so mad at him, she opened the window. They had those windows that like open out, and she grabbed the kid and hung him out the window. It was only a first floor window, but still imagine the terror of this child. And she used to get a yardstick and tell us to put our hands out. We had to put our hands out, and she would just whack you with the yardstick in your hands. And the funny thing is like, we live in a different time today. If somebody hit my child, he would come home and he would tell me, right? Because I wouldn't allow that. But back in the day, our parents were all working. They were very busy, you know, and they trusted the church to take care of their children during the day and educate their children. It was they had a position of power and authority, and they were trusted by the community. So I don't know, the rule was kind of like, you didn't tell your parents when the nun smacked the shit out of you or hit you with a yardstick or punished you in weird ways, because then your parents would hit you. My dad would smack the shit. Well, what? Sister so-and-so had to hit you? What the hell were you doing? And then my dad would smack the shit out of me for making the nun hit me. So it was a culture of silence and abuse. And one of the things I will never forget is, this is a very strange form of punishment. I would get sent to the chapel to pray. And sometimes they would give you a rosary and tell you to go say a rosary and don't come back until you say the rosary. And for those unaware, that's like 50 prayers. You got to say that Hail Mary all these times around the beads, and, and Our Father for the bigger bead, and acts of contrition and all this. Anyway, it's a long series of prayers to say a rosary. And they would send me to the chapel to say the rosary, and I would just go and do it, and then I would come back. But one time, one of the nuns decided that wasn't enough of a punishment. So what she did is, they had kneelers with like pads on them that you would kneel on to pray in the chapel. She took me to the chapel, and she was like smacking me the whole way to the chapel. And then she took the kneeler away, and she made me kneel on this marble floor. And then she looked and she said, "Start praying, I'll be right back." And I got the rosary out and I started praying. I was kind of scared because these nuns were scary. She went to, the convent where the nuns lived, which was attached to the school. And then she came back with a bag, and I didn't know what was going on. And she said, "Get up." And I stood up, and she dumped a whole bag, a huge bag of hard peas. You know how you get peas that people use for soup and they're hard? She dumped those on the floor and then told me to kneel on them. And I had to kneel on hard ass peas and say a rosary. And I've got a lot of stories like this. They were very abusive to you. One time, I got locked in the classroom and I didn't go home for lunch, and my mother thought I got kidnapped and got all upset and all this stuff. The nun locked me in the room and forgot. She was an old nun. She was like 80. So I got, you're on detention or something. And she locked the classroom and went to lunch herself, and she left me in there. My mother thought I didn't go home for lunch. So my mother got super worried and came up to the school looking for me. And, Catholic school. Yeah, it was a culture of silence and abuse. They were very, very abusive to the children, and some more than others. And it wasn't just physical abuse. There was a lot of psychological abuse, things that you could never get away with today in the school, like constantly calling a kid an idiot, or stupid, or, some of the nuns were very, very abusive. Like, they would tell some of the kids that weren't answering questions right or doing homework right, like, "What are you, the R word? Are you the R word? Do we need to send you to class for R people?" And you guys know what word I mean. I don't like that word. I won't use it here. They were very, very abusive. Orthodox kneel on bare floors, killer to their knees. Experienced that at joint Easter service, says James Prepper. James Pepper, interesting. And everybody else is reliving their Catholic nightmare. When we came into school one morning, the vice principal told us to be quiet in the yard because the principal had died. My cousin started dancing around singing a tisket, a tasket. Monsignor's in a casket. Oh, no. That sounds like something that I would do. I know you'll all have a hard time believing this, but I was something of a class clown. Yeah. I had one of those penguins that would come up behind me in class and administer her Vulcan death grip on my shoulder and lift me out of my chair. Talk about pain. Yeah, these nuns used to always grab me by the ear and pull me places, you know? Like, come over here. Come at a board, you know? Oh, Jesus. They did kind of put the fear of God in you, and part of me thinks that's, I don't know, some of the discipline was good, but when it goes into physical and mental abuse, I think it's too much. But the discipline part was good. And later, when I got to high school, the priests were more, in high school, they were a little more professional. They were usually master's degree people that were very educated, or doctors of different subjects. And they were a little more friendly or respectful of you as a young man, you know, and they talked a lot about helping you to become a better man now while you're a young man. You're a young man now. I still remember one of the priests would always tell me that. You're a young man now, Stephen. Now's the time for me to help you work on becoming a good man. But we have to do it now while you're a young man. And they did teach us a lot. And I got a good education. For those unaware, the public school system in a major city is terrible, and you could get shot, killed, stabbed, beat up every day. It's just not, and there's just no education in the public schools. So to go to Catholic school was a double-edged sword. You would get physically and mentally and psychologically abused every day, but you would learn some things and get a fairly decent education. When they weren't smacking the shit out of you, they would teach you things. Catholic stations is in Jerusalem. Catholics crawling on knees where Jesus walked. Yeah. Adam Barker. I guess you either get past it or break. Hopefully he gets help. Yeah, I'm pretty well recovered from my Catholic nightmare. I just will never give them a penny again, or trust them, or participate with them. This is a banger discussion, Stephen. Being someone from the South, we have none of this. Fascinating to hear. You guys have Catholic churches in the South, but you guys have more like Baptist and Pentecostal churches and Methodist churches that are a little crazy themselves, I think. Lady Peregrine is here and says, "Great show. You're really talented at interviewing others. This is your shiny time." Thank you. Well, thank you for saying so. I appreciate it. The VP came out and heard him and broke a yardstick on his shoulder. He had to kneel in the auditorium while the principal lay in view for 2 days during school hours. Oh my God. Sit there and look at that dead guy and think about what you did. Melvin O'Brien, this is exactly the kind of psychological torture and abuse I was talking about. Yeah. And also, my Catholic grade school was not segregated. It was a mix of boys and girls. But when I got to high school, it was all boys. And that, I don't know why they did that. Apparently, you're supposed to be able to concentrate better if there aren't girls around to distract you. But that just meant that there was lots of fights and bullying because guys were bored and had nothing to do. And I don't know, get a bunch of men together in a room, or even young men, and there's going to be fist fights and stupid territorial nonsense and bullying. And I didn't like the high school situation. And I got off early for bad behavior. One day, I just decided I wasn't going there no more. And this is a true story. My brother had a hippie van. He was a little older than me, and I was like 15 or something. Yeah, I was 15 years old. And my brother had a hippie van with a bed in the back of it, a Volkswagen camper, in my yard. He parked it in the yard next to my house. And so I just decided I wasn't going there no more. I had enough Catholic stuff. And that was after an extreme event of bullying where I was punished for defending myself after being bullied for 2 years straight by the same individual. Now, granted, I made a not very wise decision to stand up in the middle of a class and punch the guy. And that was like a cardinal sin. You got in a lot of trouble, expelled usually, but my father had some pull, so they just gave me like detention for a year or so. I don't know. I just got sick of it though, and I said, I'm not going there anymore. So every day I would leave for school and I would just walk around the block and go in my yard, and I would spend the day in my brother's hippie van listening to Howard Stern and other talk radio stations. And eventually I got caught. So, but by then I hadn't been to school for like 3 months, and I had been burning all the letters they were sending home, and I was getting the phone, so nobody. I was playing my dad. I told the school that my son was terminally ill and he was in a hospital, and oh man, I got in so much trouble. But after that, I got thrown out, and I went to public school for the remainder. Stephen, have you read The Two Babylonians by Hislop? It describes the origins of Roman Catholic rites, direct from the ancient Babylonian cult of Nimrod. No, Dan, but I'm going to put that on my list. I'm making a timestamp note here. I'm going to put that on my list to add to my research pile for the piece I'm doing on demons, demonology, and exorcism. Thank you for bringing it to my attention. It's all Baptists and stuff. Man, throwing snakes at everyone. Oh, UFO Shane, there is a snake charming church near my cabin. I keep meaning to go. I love that. I love that. And I love the churches where they like get drunk on the Holy Spirit and they speak in tongues and stuff and do faith healings. I mean, I know it's fake, but I just find it a strange form of entertainment for me. So maybe I'll go to the snake charming church. But Prince was in my congregation, and I was taller than him at 13. You met Prince? That's awesome. Junk happens in every church, not just the Catholic ones. Yeah, any group. Try a backwater elementary school. The teachers did some of the same garbage. Yeah. Everybody's recounting their school horror stories. I had an old early school teacher who used to slap our hands with hers, but it would hurt her more than us. Then one day we found her dead in a chair in class from natural causes. True story. Oh, geez, that's some trauma. The Slayer goes to church videos on YouTube. Oh, got to look that up. Then Lizzie, I got expelled in my 10th grade. Yeah, me too. Sophomore year. Got thrown out. I was a skater punk who lifted with the biggest football players. No one intimidated me, but my little friends I had to help. Class of 99. Well, that's interesting, Bobby Broadway, and thanks for being a member. I knocked out the school bully and got suspended for an afternoon. I remember the headmistress laughing. Yeah, dang, good for you. I love hearing stories like that. Yeah. Nimrod, Semiramis, and Tammuz, the Holy Family. I'll add that to my list of research as well. I watched a guy break his arm at my uncle's Pentecostal church, and they surround him and helped him with the spirit and talking in tongues. Then an hour later, he went to the hospital. Yeah, that's interesting. He invited us to Paisley Park for a memorial thing. Oh, that's interesting. Mr. Ian says, I ended the bullying. Yeah, so did I. That guy never touched me again because I really made an ass out of him. It's just the way the desks were, the desk that goes on this side of you. So I went on this side of him, and he couldn't. I went on the open side of his desk, and he couldn't go. He couldn't move. He was stuck in the chair, and I just kept hitting him. And the teacher grabbed me and pulled me off of him. But he did try to come after me more after that because I really embarrassed this guy. Because then everybody made fun of him because I was tiny and he was huge. You know, everybody said you got your ass beat by a midget because I was tiny. When I was I didn't sprout up until junior year, I guess. When I was a sophomore or earlier, I was that kid that looked like 9 years old that was in high school. You ever see a kid like that? He just didn't hit his growth spurt yet, late bloomer, whatever you want to call it. But I was tiny, tiny. I think I was like 4'11" until I was a junior or something. And then I grew like a whole foot in one summer. Eventually, that manly testosterone kicked in. Mr. Ian, I despise bullies. Yeah, I think anybody who's been a victim of bullies would feel that way. Where are you now with your religious beliefs and practice? Well, I veered off after Catholicism and tried everything. I tried being a Jew. I tried being a Buddhist. I tried being Hindu. And I tried some, let's just say, less than credible cultic religions. I got into Scientology for a little while and then quickly realized, danger, Will Robinson. I sort of went on my own spiritual journey, and I like to say now that I go to the Jeet Kune Do School of Spirituality and Religion, and that would be Bruce Lee's philosophy: take that which works and leave the rest. So I still meditate, and I still consider myself Christian, though I'm not a churchgoer. So I try to live a Christian lifestyle and believe in the general beliefs and tenets of Christianity. Love thy neighbor as yourself, and forgiveness. I struggle with that sometimes. And then I also am still into meditation, Buddhist meditation. So, and I like to think that while I was a Catholic, they would forbid me from learning anything about Buddhism or Hinduism or meditation. That was all demonic. And I know that's not correct, because learning some Buddhist meditation techniques, I feel like that made me a better Christian. And being a Christian, I think, would qualify as making me a better Buddhist too, because those two belief systems work very well together. So I kind of just take anything that works for me. I try to spend a good deal of time studying other religions too. I've read the Quran and the Bhagavad Gita, and of course the Old Testament and the New Testament. I've read the non-canonical or so-called lost books of the Bible. Any real religious text that I could get my hands on, I try to read. I take the things that I believe in or that work for me, and I leave the rest. So maybe I'll start my own cult. Are you there, God? It's me, Dave. Because I just invented my own religion that works for me. Occasionally, I think that I should get back into a church situation with my Christianity. But if I do, it will be a Protestant church, not a Catholic church. And yes, that's certainly appropriate to ask. We have done shows on Buddhism and things in the past as well. Sometimes you got to do what you got to do, no doubt, Mr. Ian. And UFO Shane says, I feel like a lot of us could go on for hours talking about our religious upbringing. I'm loving this. We should have a panel show for, counseling purposes. I had to punch out this guy in gym class, and the principal said, what did you do to make Pepper hit you? And he dismissed me and put the jerk in detention. Good for you. Yeah. Most bullies will stop bothering you if you don't let them push you around. Some require further action. Yeah. Unknown sender. Well, that's a weird story. Not long ago, told my daughter-in-law the baby she was carrying was not alive. Called her several times after to take care of it. Everyone prayed with her tonight. She's fine, 4 months old. Oh, God bless her. Human focus is so powerful. It's best when freely applied as a group, not focused beyond sight by priests. Yeah. Oh, you know what I forgot to mention? We just want to take a moment to thank our new distributor, who's also a sponsor of our show now, Pill.net. If you're a supporter of free speech, if you're tired of all the censorship going on all the major platforms, imagine a new platform that is devoid of any censorship. You can say anything you like, and you're posts won't get deleted or demonetized. You won't get banned from the platform. I'm really enjoying it. And you can visit it and sign up for your own account, www.pill.net. And when you sign up for a new account, by the way, it's free. They'll ask you for your for who referred you. Put my name in there, Stephen Cambion. And if you're a content creator, I can expedite the process of getting that turned on for you. They have to turn a switch to make you a content creator, but you can get with me off air after you sign up. Send me the email address you use to sign up, and I'll send it over to their creative team and get you expedited, signed up there as a content creator. As a content creator there, once they flip the switch and you're a content creator, you are instantly monetized there. I'm already praising the cash over there. They have a payment system. It's called gold pilling. So if you like somebody's video, you can send them some gold pills, and you can purchase gold pills, and they can cash in their gold pills, and the payout is through Stripe. I haven't done a payout yet. I'm just letting that money roll. I'm going to let it build up in there until we need it for something, kind of like I do with the PayPal or the Patreon money or whatever. But you're instantly monetized. I've already made a bunch of money over there. Well, I don't know how much, so I don't want to overstate it. It's, but I'm making money every day. Somebody sends me some of these gold pills, and I can cash them out for cash through Stripe. I think it's a good platform. Now, I have received some criticism because there's a lot of cute people over there. They seem to be big Trump supporters over there. Me, I don't care. I'm not a Trump supporter. I'm not a Trump hater either. Well, a little bit. I hated some of the things that he said or some of the things that he did. But I feel the same way about Biden. Biden's an idiot and a criminal. So's Trump. So anyway, my point is, I don't get political. So I don't care if a site is right-leaning or left-leaning. Most sites are left-leaning. Facebook's left-leaning. Twitter was left-leaning until Elon took over. YouTube's left-leaning. Google's left-leaning. Most sites are left-leaning. So when people complain that site's Trump supporters are too right, I don't care, because I don't do politics. I consider it a good place to expand my show. There's already people that would have never found my show, Truthseekers, that are finding me through pill.net. So to me, it's already been a success. That, coupled with the fact that I'm already making money over there, and we always need new streams of revenue. In any case, here's a message from the pill.net founders telling you a little bit about the site.
Welcome to pill.net. We aren't just another social media platform. We are the home of free speech. Pill.net offers people a place to share their thoughts, ideas, and content without the threat of censorship. With live streaming, uploaded content, social media posting, and more, Pill.net goes the extra mile by introducing innovative features like mobile push notifications that keep you connected without relying on big tech app stores. These notifications allow creators to instantly alert their audience when they're live or have posted new content, ensuring that your message reaches the right audience at the right time. Plus, with monetization available from day one, you can turn your passion into earnings right from the get-go. Donations and subscription options make it easier than ever to earn income with your content. And it doesn't stop there. Pill.net is constantly evolving to meet your needs. Our updated direct messaging system makes it easier than ever for content creators to engage with people privately. Anyone can also go start their own group chats with friends. Pill.net is more than just a platform. It's a lively community where everyone's voice counts. Make your account today and let our team welcome you to Pill.net. Free speech lives here.
Yes, and if one of the chat room moderators can put the link to the Truthseekers profile over there, if you sign up, follow me, and I'll give you a follow back as well. Yeah, all in all, I've had a very good experience over there. I'm finding new content that I've never seen, or new content creators I've never seen. Now, granted, a lot of them may have gotten banned in other places, but so far I'll say that Pill.net treats you like an adult. You can curse, you can say whatever you want over there. Nobody gets upset, but it's a free speech platform, so people may disagree with you and argue with you, but that's any social media site. So far, I'm finding a lot of nice folks over there and enjoying my time there. And I think you will too. Give it a try. www.pill.net. Put my name, Stephen Cambion, in the who referred you. I'd appreciate that because we want our new distribution partners to know that I'm sending some users over to them. And of course, I'd like to send them good content creators. So if you're a crappy content creator, don't put my name in there. Okay? They probably got enough crappy content creators. But if you're a good content creator, go over there. And as far as the streaming setup, it's the easiest one. I'll say the easiest alt video site to stream to. It's better than DLive and Rumble by far. It's better than Odyssey by far. It's very simple. You just copy two things, the link and the stream key. You put them into your StreamYard or OBS or whatever streaming software you're using, and you're off to the races. One thing I will say is last night, I knew I was going to do this eventually. When you set up a new live stream over there, you copy the two keys into your streaming software, but you have to make sure that you go back to pill.net and post the stream. I didn't post last night's stream, so we didn't stream to pill.net last night, and I apologize to our pill.net viewers or friends for that. But they've got a live chat over there, just like over here. We're going to be doing some pill.net exclusive streams like the Truthseekers Uncensored, and we can curse all we want. We can have dancing girls, and nobody will demonetize us or cry or complain. Well, you know, I think it's a win-win. The thief that accepted Christ as they were being crucified was buried in a field reserved for criminals, wasn't he? The day you will be in heaven with me. Jesus. Yeah, well, his body may have been buried, but I'm pretty sure that if Jesus promised him, you'll be in heaven with me, that's where he is. But I'm sure there's a better theologian than I that could explain that one to you. Well, that won't stop determined woke idiots, you know. Yeah, people can cry I'm selling too many spaceships, right? See, some people like Trump. Melvin O'Brien, the best thing about Trump is that he's not a politician. Well, he's becoming one. I mean, he's run for president 3 times now. I think he qualifies as a politician now. All right, so we're just over 2 hours and 30 minutes. We want to thank all of you for joining us. We have done our due diligence for today. I've got some more wiring to do in here for the new set. I want to thank all of you for joining us. We want to thank you kind and generous PayPal supporters. And we want to thank you Twitch subscribers, you Patreon supporters, YouTube channel members, super chatters, super thanks people, and super sticker people, and PayPal pledgers. We thank all of you for your kindness, generosity, and support and helping us to praise the cash, keeping the show going. Yeah, keeping the lights on. Yeah, I have the lights bright in here for a change tonight. Thought it was appropriate to not be too spooky if we're going to be speaking about demons. So, yeah, we have done our due diligence. Now, the next show will be tomorrow night. That will be, well, it's really tonight, but we're going to call it tomorrow night because it's almost midnight, and that will be 8/23 at 9 p.m. And we want to thank all of you for joining us. Remind you that our next live show is tomorrow night, 8/23/2023 at 9 p.m. Eastern. Please join us in the live chat. Hope to see you at our next live show. And please be sure, I wouldn't be a good YouTuber if I didn't remind you this, to like, comment, subscribe, and share these videos on your social media. It really does help. And one other thing that really helps is to watch one more. Maybe not tonight. You've had enough of me. But tomorrow, while you're working, while you're cleaning your house, while you're watching your kids. Oh, by the way, tomorrow is my last day of being on house arrest. It's my kids' last day of summer vacation. I'm going to take them to the park and try and celebrate their last day of summer. They're going back to school. Thank God. Listen, friends, if I ever get divorced, it'll be in the summer because my stress level, you wouldn't think watching 2 kids all day is hard, but one of my children is nonverbal autistic and he does a whole host of crazy stuff all day long. All I can hope to do is throw enough snacks at them to keep them happy until their mom comes home. But I've enjoyed my summer, spending a little more time with them than usual, but I've had enough. It's time for them to go back to school. Pardon me. So we'll be back tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I truly hope that you will be here with us. Also, we want to take a moment to thank our chat room moderators, thank our new guest booker, Thin Lizzie Borden, for bringing us tonight's guest. Lizzie's got to find me 85 more people. We're going to really fill up our schedule. Once my children go back to school, I'm going to start hitting more live shows and be live more nights a week than ever before, especially if I have help to fill up the schedule in the form of Lizzie there helping with the booking. Because, there's only so many people that I encounter or find out, and Lizzie has a whole list of other people that I don't really know, but like tonight's guest would be interesting to talk to and share with you guys, and I'm all for that. And we're really going to be hitting it hard once my children are back in school. Give me a little bit of time to adjust to having a little more free time. I think I might just sleep in for the next 2 weeks, right? But after that, I'll be ready to dedicate a lot more time and a lot more energy to doing this show. No place I would rather be than right here with you. Well, except for my cabin, which, by the way, this coming weekend, I've got 3 days to work on both cabins. Well, one's a cabin, one's bare ground. But I'm almost positive that this weekend I'll be breaking ground, starting to build the first structure on the new land. I'm going to film it. I'll be sharing it with you Patreon supporters and channel members first, and then I'll make that video public. I did film a whole bunch of stuff there, just sort of clean up weekend, and I'm going to be filming there this weekend, starting to build the first cabin, which will be a 10 by 12 cabin with a sleeping loft. But if anybody asks, it's a shed, because I'm allowed to build a 10 by 12 structure with no permits. So that'll be the first one. Then I found out I'm allowed to build an 8 by 8 tree house with no permits. So that'll be the next one. If people come to visit at the cabin and we run out of room at the cabin, I can send them over there, and there'll be a tree house and a shed cabin. But I got my shovel ready. I didn't get a gold one or anything fancy, but we're literally breaking ground. I have to dig holes to put posts in to start the building process. And I'll be filming that this weekend for sure. So maybe next week I'll have a video about that for all of you guys. I'll be back tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I truly hope that you will be here with me. And we want to thank you, chat room moderators, Thin Lizzie Borden, our new guest booker, and of course, Mr. Ian, the man with the golden voice. So that's all I got for you, friends. Until next time, my name is Stephen Cambian. Good night, and God bless all of you.
your heart. It's burning on the inside of you, and you need to make a vow of faith of $1,000. Oh, Bob, couldn't you say 25? No! You can't make a $1,000 vow of faith. I'm saying in faith. So we got people that don't have, teenagers that have hardly nothing going for them. They got enough faith to make a $1,000 vow and send a little $5 here and $10 there as God begins to move like a whirlwind in their life. Because they don't have that old programming of religion. But this isn't the way we do it in my church. Forget your church. I'm talking about what God says. And if you want the kind of miracles that are in the Bible, you're going to have to do what God said to do. And I've got the faith to believe they'll come to pass. This is hot soil for anyone that's got the faith to sow into it right now. I mean right now. I mean right now, not tomorrow. That's part of your problem. God's already spoken a word to you and told you to do it. You need to do it right now. If you'll start now and get your seed of faith into the ground, it'll begin to grow and God begin to move. Thank you, Lord. Thank you, Lord. Thank you, Lord. This is somebody's day of harvest. You see, there's a time to fast and a time to feast. There's a time to sow, so there'll be a time to reap. Many people want to reap and they want to feast, but they're not willing to pay the price to sow in order that they can reap. You can't see what's not seen until you let go of what is seen. And I'm talking about your money, because your money is you. It's your blood, it's your sweat, your tears. It's driving down the freeways, it's going to work, it's believing, it's you. And letting go of it makes room for the new. Lot's wife didn't want to go on, and that was the end. Thank you, Lord. I have said your word, and now I'm going to pray for those that's got the faith to do something with what they believe. Thank you, Jesus. Here's a $1,000 vow. Thank you, Lord. Thank you, Lord. You say you want to make a $500 vow? Then do it. Then do it. If that takes faith for you, do it. You want to make a $100 vow or two? If that takes faith, see, I like 1,000, because I know I got you. I got you.
Here's what I want you to do. If the Lord is speaking to you, ushers, bring some baskets down. Just leave them there. I'm not finished. I got one more point to make. This is what I want you to do. Thank you, Miss Marguerite. I brought her because I want you to understand that the work must continue. This is not a plea for money. It's a plea for partnership so that we can be what we're supposed to be. I just need 497 people to say, I'll do 300.
I believe that you will agree with me when I say that in the last few months, and especially the last few weeks, that the anointing of the Holy Spirit on the telecast has been exceptional. The letters that we are receiving, the comments that you are giving us, but above all, it's just there. And we thank the Lord so much for it, because it is the anointing that breaks the yoke. It breaks that yoke asunder, whatever the yoke may be. I want to thank you also for the help that you gave us last week concerning the appeals that we made, how we are rejoicing. I wish I could give you a total now. I can't. I just can't. I don't have it yet. But I'm asking you, please. God spoke with a lot of you that did not respond. And we love you and we thank you, but when God speaks to you, I know he'll bless you if you will respond. And if you could send a gift of $50.
I like being able to help others. I like being able to fulfill my dreams, and it takes money to do what we're doing. That's why God gives you influence, to help the world, to make it a better place. We don't ask for money, and people send in millions of dollars to help us keep the broadcast on the air. I don't think there's anything wrong with having a nice place to live and being blessed. And money should never be the focus of your life. If that's all you're doing, that's shallow. It should be to be a blessing to others. Yeah.
Streaming acapellas, drum beats, and guitar riffs to the World Wide Web, from one countryside to the next. It's an international love affair, and new music is our gift to the free world. Our freedom of expression is only limited by our creativity, so we stand together, and because of it, our voices are unlimited. We represent every corner of the world as we broadcast our message to every country, state, city, and town. Our supporters have expressed tremendous gratitude for taking the high road and giving them free music again. To the world. To the world.